Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the second episode of the Esoteric Podcast. I know, two. Peace, man. So I'm Melody.
Jamie.
Yes. And we are so happy to be doing this second episode. And if you didn't catch the first one, please just feel free to watch it. You can get an idea of who we are and what forces kind of were brought together to make this happen and why it's happening and why we're doing this. So we're just, as this goes on, it's going to get more and more awesome, I promise. But anyway, I'm sure Jamie agrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
well, as performers and in shows, your show always starts out like this, and then 6 months later, your show is
It's a
lot
totally
more.
different.
Yeah. So we're gonna get there.
We're getting there. I'm working with several different editing software things, and just I'm good at that stuff. But yeah, it's just a different. This is a different animal. So it's the holiday season, and so we were talking, and we thought like a perfect and fascinating topic to get into during the holiday season is the Christmas Carol and Charles Dickens, but not just about that, but what the real story is of the Christmas Carol and why it has resonance with everybody all the way here in 2024.
Yeah.
So it was actually Jamie's idea to like do that, and I thought, oh man, that's so good because we can tie a nice little esoteric bow around the whole thing, and I think it's going to be a great episode. And I guess we can kick it off by being like, okay, this is a good question before we get started. What's your favorite version of the Christmas Carol?
Like movie?
Yeah, like it's been done like 1,000 times.
Probably the first one I think of is probably the Muppets, because
Dude, same.
Well, it came out when I was a kid. And
Yes.
I remember like when it came out, I was little, and McDonald's, with their Happy Meals or something, they had like the little Kermit and Miss Piggy and Fozzie, and they like Miss Piggy had a bonnet and stuff. Like I had those, I still have them, and they were like my favorite little thing. And they sit in my room, and like, the music. I mean, maybe because we're kids and grew up in the '80s, but the Muppets is probably the one I like best. It's an easier pill to swallow as a child and get the message.
It's deep though, but like the opening, well, of course, like just the musical score is was it Paul Williams? I think it's the person who wrote all the music for the Muppet Show. It's so good, and just that opening song with, I remember, and I still to this day laugh. I laugh harder now at that opening whole montage, and then there's like Gonzo, and he grabs one of the rats and is like washing the window with the rat like he's a squeegee. Dude, dead. I was dead. I was laughing so hard. But then you've got Michael Caine, who's like
great,
brilliant, perfect Scrooge, perfect. And but I gotta say too, there was a version that came out not all that long ago. It might have been 10 years ago now, maybe more, but it was the like animated kind of in that new style of animation version of it with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, we just watched that tonight.
So good.
Yeah, that was my first time. So I hadn't seen it. It's funny you mentioned that, because I told Matthias, I was like, we're doing this podcast and I want a little like refresher of it. And I was like, I haven't seen this one because it came out kind of similar to like when the Polar Express came out, and there's that whole like uncanny valley thing that I don't like. And so that Jim Carrey version animated is a little
rough,
freaky, because I'm like, blink, but we just watched it actually, and it was really good. Actually, there was parts in that were in the book that I hadn't seen in other versions actually. So yeah, I recommend it. And now that I'm like thinking about it, like his bed sheets, the bed curtains. And then at the end, like they're trying to sell it and all that stuff, look exactly like your backdrop right now. Like it's kind of freaking me out a little bit. Like I'm not, okay, when we're done, you're going to go look it up. Anybody watching, pause, look up Jim Carrey, Christmas Carol, look up the bed curtains that Scrooge had and look at your backdrop because.
Well, this is a legitimate, like heavy duty tapestry.
Really?
And and I actually don't know where it came from. It was just in the show trailer, like folded up very nicely in the show trailer, and when it was purchased and then like rent and then built out and everything, and I was like, where did this? Because I knew that's expensive, right? And I asked around to the people who built it and like whatever, and they're like, there's nothing in there, and I'm like, but I immediately was just like, I was so drawn to it, and I always kind of kept it like safe and like up because it's real heavy, so it's one of those things like I don't even know where it came from.
Weird. It's so beautiful. I thought you bought it like for a background for this. I was like, oh, good choice.
No, it was
you didn't choose it. It chose you.
Yeah. And I to this day I'm like, man, because there's no way. I mean, you can tell it's like, I mean, everything is really.
Oh my God!
There's a golden fringe around it. I got nothing. I don't know where it came from. Don't know, but it's clearly like older, and it's been very well taken care of, So yeah. That's funny. I'm gonna go look that up though. That's Of course, that would be the case, right?
Yeah, it was weird. I was like, okay, this is too weird. So you know how you asked what your favorite one was? I can tell you that my least favorite is the 1930s version, the black and white one. I remember being a kid and my parents watching it. Terrified me. Like,
it's so
nightmares.
Droll.
It scared the crap out of me.
That was that whole era where they were doing everything kind of like that. And it was so jarring. And I remember that one too. And then I remember being like, Ixnay on the Christmas Carol. Like, no. And then the Christmas Carol, the Muppets version. And I was like, oh man, no, this is where it's at right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, like there was the Mickey Mouse version that I used to watch too. The cartoon one.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was kind of skimmed it a little, but
it was, I didn't like the end of it. Was kind of scary with Pete, the bad guy, like sending Scrooge McDuck to hell or whatever that part was. Freaked me out. And then there was the Flintstones. Do you remember the Flintstones version? Again, it was a short, quick little version of it, but Fred was like so busy, like they were having this play or something. I haven't seen it in years, but he was like so busy doing something else, and then he had to like be reminded, to go to the play and enjoy your family kind of thing or something like that. But
that's right. Good. There's that's crazy. I totally forgot about that. Completely. Oh my God, that's so funny. Like that's like one of those like where you're like, whoa, that happened.
For memory unlocked.
Yeah, right. New memory unlocked. That's totally it. Oh God, that's funny. It is. It's exactly like a video game. It's exactly that. Like where it's like, clink, you have a new memory. But yeah, that's it. Well, the Christmas Carol, a little backstory really quickly about Dickens. Dickens was, of course, he's an Aquarius. So
I saw that. I looked it up the other day. I was like, I wonder what his sign was. And it said February 7th. And I was like, that's my boy.
Of course he was an Aquarius,
right? Of course he was. Of course.
Yes.
Of course he was.
And so he was, he was born in 1812. And the funny thing about like his story is he was born in like an affluent family, but then very quickly when he was very young, like his dad was thrown in jail for what they used to call like debtor's jail. So he had like a lot of bad debts and he was like a bankster, and so he was thrown in jail. So like, in those times, it's like if the father figure is gone, then, I mean, it's immediately pretty much poverty for the wife and the kids, right?
Yeah.
And this, of course, was during the Victorian Age, which is a fascinating time period because of what the kind of impulse was that was coming in during that time. It was I think everybody can, everybody kind of recognizes there was something interesting about the Victorian age, and like there was a lot of mysticism that was just right out there. I mean, it was just right out there. And then you had this opulence going on, and then on the other end of it, you had just abject poverty. I mean, just poverty. I mean, you had like the Irish were like starving to death. You had, I mean, just all over the world. It was like there was these polarities that were going on during that time, which I find, and there was no place on the planet that kind of like, showcased that more than, in England, like in London. So I think that was like, it was like a perfect, kind of stamp of what was really happening on a consciousness level everywhere. But yeah. And it's so interesting though. And just y'all just bookmark that. We'll get there. But, so being an Aquarius yourself, okay, I think that, see, cause I've always thought, and by the way, we're on task here. I know the triple Gemini in me can go and send everybody reeling. So I have a wonderful Aquarius to reel me back in and be like, hey,
anyway,
there's a reasonable air sign. Because we all know Libras be crazy. No, I'm just kidding. But Aquarius is, at least in my experience in dealing with them, my sister's an Aquarius, and I've been around a lot of them. They have like an inbuilt like thing of right and wrong, like just like within them, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, some people, most people. I've known some kind of bad Aquariuses too, but
right. But I mean, like, there's something that that once they've made up their mind about something, that it's not like, it's like they're open-minded, of course, like all Aquarius
but their
are.
morals are unwavering.
There it is. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes. And so with Dickens, he, it's kind of like he got to have a foot in both worlds of like that opulent, coming from the epicrostinu, that. And then he also, when his, dad was thrown in jail, and then he really got to see, because that, like right after that happened, he was like in like basically what you would say like a sweatshop, like, I mean, child labor, really bad conditions, and was having to work like all the time as like a 11-year-old or something. And so and so he really saw like beyond the veil of what he had been living up until that point. And so that starts to kind of alchemize his personality to being more of an like an observer of of social and economic culture and what was really happening. Because I think I can only imagine that as a kid at that age, like having this like beautiful life, right, and then going from that to into like these like warehouses of like children with like improper clothing and no food, filth, and really, really wretched bosses that are, I mean, because you'd have to be to force children to work like that. And that must have been very jarring for him to have a foot in that door and to go like, but to have the wherewithal to understand like, oh, there are two worlds going on right now. And to have that kind of like higher thinking and to
Yeah.
be placed in that. I really believe that that was divine forethought, before he came in to
Yeah.
his incarnation as Charles Dickens. Um, but kind of wrapping up his thing, I have, a lot of notes about him, but he started as a kid. This was funny. Like his dad gets out of jail or whatever, and somehow I forget like because it's all those like those like very British like parliamentary terms. It's that thing, which
Yeah.
it's like above my pay grade. I don't understand it. You know, and but he got out of that and whatever, and then at that point, Dickens was put into a private school, and that's really where his real like taste for writing and everything kind of occurred. But he also knew in the back of his head at any moment, so, I could wind right back up
Yeah.
where I just was. So he had to start like developing skills that were, like craftsmanship, trade in like, what can I teach myself to where I am of value right now? And so he taught himself shorthand, which is at the time was like totally invaluable to have a skill like that at that time,
Okay.
and because you go to the big parliamentary lectures and blah blah blah, and if someone knew shorthand, they could dictate everything that was being said much more quickly than a journalist would at the time. It was a really great technique. And it's actually the technique that Edgar Casey's transcriber had, which is why like all that data coming in that fast was able to be captured, without the use of like audio recording and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's a kid, he's working in journalism, he's like at the Gazette, in the Tribune, and all these places, and he really started to catch the eye of these like adults that were like this. Like not only was he good at it, but he was like great, and they saw something else. So my own opinion is that he was, without it being anywhere that's on the surface that you can look up, but I know he was definitely mentored by at least one or two people that were probably in the Rosicrucian secret order of higher knowledge or something along those lines, which saw kind of the makings of like, oh, this is no ordinary kid. This kid, because they know like the really initiated in those orders in the mystery school kind of world know how to recognize, a higher soul. And he might have even been, they might have watched him work for a couple of years before kind of dropping in little hint bombs and knowledge bombs and stuff to whet his appetite to see what he would do. But anyway, long story made short, the Christmas Carol, when he really took off, is when he started writing allegorical stories.
Yeah.
And because before that, he was a great observationalist. He was almost like, he was really saying a lot through. Oh, he had a pen name too. It was like a fake name he would write with, and it was Boz. I thought that was interesting. B-O-Z. I feel like why'd you pick that? Like,
there's probably something mystical behind it, but who knows?
I know I haven't had time to dive down that, but I'm going to, because that's a really interesting thing. But it also keeps the energy of somebody targeting you away from you.
Yeah.
And so some of that might have been a recommendation from one of those.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Mentor types.
Yeah. Well, when I was doing, I didn't do as much research as you did, but when I was trying to piddle around and just try to, because I didn't know him at all, anything about it. Something I thought was very interesting was that, he had a wife that they had like 10 kids, and then he had like a mistress, and he was like seeing this actress lady, and he fell madly with her, and they ended up running off together, and then they ended up getting married and lived happily till his death or something. But he had called his mistress, who said that was like his love of his life, he called her his magical circle of one.
I mean, what?
Wow. Yeah. Like if someone called
Yeah.
me that, that's the most
Like,
romantic
I
thing
don't
I've
even
ever
know where to
heard. But
put that.
that's definitely
Like
some mystical
that's,
stuff right there.
reconnecting. There we go. Hopefully I didn't lose you. We had a buffering issue, but it's fine. That is really crazy. I had grazed that, and I thought that was like, because people are so quick to like pass judgment. Oh, he's a bad guy because he did all this stuff, but it's like, like with women or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, but how many of us are on our second marriage? Or has been, yeah, I mean, I'm not judging anybody over here. Plus, back then,
No.
you really couldn't just marry anybody you wanted to. Like, a lot of stuff was fixed up or this or that, or like, it's just different times. So whatever. But I don't care who he said it to. I don't care who he said it to. The fact that he said that she was his magical circle of one. Wow. Like,
That's yeah. And the way I feel about stuff like that too is like, he probably wasn't meant to meet that, that person, that soulmate, that whatever, until he was already very well initiated in
true.
higher knowledge. Because, maybe they had to meet up at a strange, like, intersection of time and space, and it just happened to be that. That's that weird. In our first episode, we were talking about just kind of like the tapestry of, the weave of how everything fits together, and sometimes you're in a part of that just doesn't make any sense to you, and then looking back, you're like, oh, if I hadn't have been at that point at that time with that person who was completely toxic, then I wouldn't have done X, Y, Z, blah blah blah.
Yep.
So it all is for a reason.
Yep.
And it's change is inevitable. But I mean, I don't know of anyone who like, oh, I met my first love I mean, maybe one or two people like in high school and yep, still together. You know what I mean? It's like very rare.
Yeah.
That's crazy though about that. I didn't catch that thing about the magical. I saw something about magical whatever, but I didn't know that was the actual phrase. So that's cool. That's really cool. Oh, that's interesting. So he started writing these allegorical stories and whatever. And one of the reasons why we chose the Christmas Carol, obviously it's the holiday season, but it always struck me as more than just like, oh, here's this quaint story for kids or for, in my own personal experience, which we will get into. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we got some cool stuff to tell you guys.
Yes, we do. And we will be coming up on that. But we both felt that it would be good to talk about the Christmas Carol kind of as like, a great theme and also a really great way to introduce this very, very deep, profoundly deep esoteric concept of what's called the guardian of the threshold. And that is kind of, or some people refer to it as the threshold guardian. It depends on what, circle of, what you've studied or, whatever. But it's definitely, or if Joseph Campbell, hero with 1,000 faces, right? Like the whole mythology of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
The threshold guardian is extensively noted over and over again in his work as well. So it's cross-cultural. It crosses all religions, everything, because it is something that happens to anyone who is trying to rise above their material, earthly, very limited scope nature, and is and has the curiosity and the want and the drive to attain higher knowledge and a higher consciousness of being. And so you can't just attain that without being forewarned about, like, if you go on this path, this is, you
This might
will
happen.
have, yes, you have to face all sides of you. And
Yeah.
those of you out there that have newly kind of awakened in the last, like, maybe 4 or 5 years, because there's a lot of y'all out there, I've noticed that. And it can really fracture you if you're not prepared for it, or if you try to do it too quickly. And that's kind of where the guardian of the threshold comes in. So Christmas Carol is perfect at illustrating that. And I know I can almost hear the comments like, but Scrooge was a bad guy, and why would anything, well, he wasn't seeking higher consciousness. So that's where the story gets very interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that before we jump right in.
Yeah, I think I think what Melody's saying too is that, like, when you first read the book, probably as a kid, or you see the movie, you think, oh, that was something that happened to this person back then, whatever. Or it's just like reading the Bible or something. All these things cross time and space and can happen. Anything can happen. Like miracles can happen every day, anytime, to any person. So, I mean, yeah, I think, just like you said, anybody who's wanting to level up and awaken themselves, like, don't be surprised if stuff like what happened to him or what happened in biblical times happens to you, because like it's time and space isn't real, or space is real but time isn't real. So it's,
Right.
And they don't have time on the other side, so they can jump down here any second they want and kind of slap you in the face and be like, you said you were ready, so let's go. So just be prepared. And I think everybody pretty much knows the story, but we're gonna share some personal things that have happened to us that link back to that, because that's how we kind of started on this venture anyway, is me saying, hey, Melody, XYZ happened. And she's like, well, Christmas Carol, blah, blah, blah. And my mind went, I was like, oh my God, you're right. So that's when I was like, we have to get this knowledge out to other people. So that's what we're doing.
Exactly. And it's, I don't know how many times that story, I did a radio production of Christmas Carol, which was really fun. And I remember, and we read the original version, but the gag is that it was like a radio play where there was chaos going on in the background and interruptions and everything like that. So it was very funny. But I remember, like, reading a lot of that, like the actual, story, the original story. And even then I was like, there's a lot here to unpack, I recognized a lot of the things that were happening, but I guess we could break it down first of all by, like, Scrooge, right? And this kind of like ossified, frozen in his anger and bitterness, and nothing. Why is anything? Bah humbug, that thing. And you just see this deplorable character that's just like, he's literally, like, the way he's drawn is like he's contorted into how he is on the inside, right?
Yeah.
And and of course he's dealing with the most material aspects of life, which is money, debt, all of these things like that. There's a great deal of, I think, Dickens putting in a kind of a mixed bag with Scrooge there of not only his own life, but also, kind of the world that he saw his dad being a part of.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just that whole industry of debt and not having any kind of compassion for people that have fell on hard times or just trying to make it. So, I guess kicking it off, Scrooge, we all know how it starts, where he's been really crappy that day. And he's told, like, yeah, get out of here, like,
yeah,
I'm not going to donate to your orphans fund, like, F you, I'm not going to do any of these things.
Yeah.
And he's just awful. He's also got his guy in there who Cratchit, who's like working himself to the bone, and who's clearly like trying to, it's like a classic abused person who's who's like, I just got to keep doing this because they have their own situation at home, and they can't jeopardize that at all, and nobody knows what's going on there. So so he's really been extra bad that day. Like he's ticked off the angelic realm. He's really,
Yeah.
like, I mean, just all the things. Like maybe once a day, normally he's crappy, but like that day, it's like, oh man, you just told like everybody to buzz off,
Yeah.
And so, and it's cold and whatever. It's Christmas time. Like, no, you're not going to get the day off, you ass. And so, his first encounter are with what we talked about in our first episode, ghosts.
Yeah.
And they're covered in chains.
Yeah.
And they're like, they're in agony, right? And it's his old business associates. And so when they come into the room, I mean, I know you guys know the story, but I mean, one of the things we talked about in our first episode, the last one, was, why would you hang around here? Like, what in the world is keeping you here? When you can go into the light and be, debriefed and then rest and everything and kind of go over a life review and all that stuff. And so we were talking about like, how we still have free will after we're gone.
Yeah.
Like after we've shed the physical body. But in that astral state, if you're still trapped in the desires of the material world, alcoholism, money, sex, food, whatever it is, or anger or revenge, that's a big one, guilt. Yeah. You're gonna like, in the Far East they call it a hungry spirit or a hungry ghost, because you can't quench that hunger of the astral form through a physical body. So it's just agonizing on like a soul level. It's like the desire, but without the physical. It's hard for us to wrap our brain around, but it's desire without a physical way to quench, or being thirsty without a physical body to be able to quench your thirst.
Right.
So, yeah. So,
and that was something in the one that I had just watched, when Marley, when he visits and then he leaves, he goes out through the window, and then Scrooge sees all these other ghosts as well. And of course it's like a animated cartoon kind of thing, so they're kind of drawn sort of funny so it doesn't freak you out, but it shows all these other ghosts that are also chasing money. And there was this one in particular that I was like, boy, if that should be the picture right next to in the dictionary what a ghost is because it was this guy, and he had a fishing pole like coming out of the back of him in front of him, and it was like a big bag of money with like the pound sign on it, and he's running after it, but the pole's always in front of him. So, and I mean, it's made to be funny, but it's deep, because I was like, I was like, that's it right there. Like, yes, haha, funny, but also, oh, that's real.
That is so real. It is so real. And so when there's the line that Dickens wrote, which is like, Scrooge is like, oh, damn you specters, and he's like, you could be a piece of undigested beef or a rotten potato, like, I'm not, like, he's even like buzz off to the ghost, right?
Yeah.
Like, I ain't even trying to hear you. And which I had wrote some show notes, which we will post in the description if you guys are interested in it. It gets into more detail about that. But that's kind of your first clue that Scrooge is no ordinary person, that he might be just kind of a warped, higher knowledge person.
Yeah.
Because he's not afraid of Marley and Marley.
Yeah.
He's like, he's going through the classic skeptic, thing where you're like, well, what did I eat before I went to bed? Like maybe there's shadows on the wall. Maybe it's this, and you're not really scared, but you're like, ah. And then they get his attention real quick, and he's like, oh, But the line that is written in that is that these are the chains that, these are the chains that we're bound to, that we have to carry. These are the chains we carry around in life. The fetters that are weighing us down they're still with us in death. And that is, straight up out of so many ancient texts, especially a lot of the Hermetic material of Hermes, thrice great, and then Thoth, which is also Hermes. A lot of the, Hellenistic writings, Plato, whatever, it's all in there. And almost that exact line. And it really is about the astral and not moving on, and, not letting go of those desires, and how they'll just keep you bound in those chains, that heaviness. So, he thinks he's off the hook, like, okay, that was scary. I think I'm just going to go to bed now.
Yeah.
And then he has the first experience, which we were talking about earlier today, of, the ghost of Christmas past, right? And how that's been represented through all sorts of different versions of that story, plus many others. But you have to tell the candles on the head, like how that's all. But it was used to be drawn like in the children's illustration books. That's the way it was drawn.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of illustrations over the years for the Christmas Carol and what the spirits all look like, which it's interesting how the middle spirit and the last spirit always looks the same kind of, but the first one has went through so many different things, and sometimes it's just a light or a being or a child or whatever. But I remember the book that I had when I was a kid. It was like a little girl, and she had a wreath around her head with the candles in it, right? So there's 4 candles, and then on Christmas you put one in the middle and you light it, right? And you light the other ones. There's like 3 of them are purple and one of them's white. I don't remember all that. You can look it up. But I loved that picture when I was a kid. I was like, oh, I love how she looks as she's glowing, and the wreaths. I used to take my mom's wreath off the door and put it on my head, and like try to put candles in it and like walk around with lit candles. And of course my mom's like, you're gonna burn the house down. But I wanted to be her. I was like, she's so, like, whatever the being is, it's just full of light and whatever. And I don't know, but yeah, that really happened.
Yeah, no, I get that though. I thought I had one of the children's books too, and she was very innocent looking and beautiful, and and natural looking. And then there was these candles that were like a halo crown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh man, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was just like, yes, that wouldn't scare me. That's like a good friend I want to have, like whatever. But yeah, and it's funny because of the way that's always depicted as like childlike or innocence or something.
Yeah.
And so it's the ghost of Christmas past.
Because it's showing you your childhood. So it comes to you as a child. Yeah.
And in the meeting of the various threshold guardians, because there's not just one threshold,
Yeah.
And that meeting of that first one is usually it's like you're getting baby stepped, right?
Yeah.
But in the case of Scrooge, what has transformed him or like rotted his heart, and so the ghost of Christmas past really had to be invoked in this threshold situation first, because he had it's like in the Buddhist teachings about being covered up, you just layers and layers and layers and layers of being covered up, and then you forget of that inner child that was full of awe and reverence and questions, and in that joy, the essence of joy.
Yeah.
And they take him through his life, and then he sees himself, and he's so happy, and like everybody loves him, and he's like, effervescent. And there's that one point where he's met the love of his life, this woman or whatever. And then he chooses essentially to like not put that on so much of a pedestal, because like career's over here, and well, I want that, but I'm going to make sure it's exactly the way I want it. So I'm going to be rich, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to marry her.
Yeah.
I'm going to be with, but she would have married him anyway.
Yeah.
So obviously when he goes back to do that, everything shatters. And so that's like the first, I call that the first etheric pinprick of pain, of like, and I think it's even more painful because you did it to yourself.
Right. Yeah.
And if you've got an ego that's pretty healthy, you certainly don't want to admit that,
face your past. Yeah.
That you did that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people will lean into that even harder, and will go like, well, she probably isn't the one anyway, and you'll make up 1,000 excuses of whatever. But that was really like when in the book, when he sees like that, like, oh, that was the pain. Oh, there's the original pain. There it is.
Well, and I think, oh, go ahead.
No, you.
Sorry, I was just going to say real quick, I think that's part of what kickstarted this. Like you said, he's had a really bad day and all this stuff happened. But when his nephew Fred comes in, he asks him, he says, why did you get married? And Fred says, well, because I fell in love. And Scrooge says, fell in love. He's like, love is the only love is as silly as Christmas, Merry Christmas. Our love is the only thing sillier than a Merry Christmas, right?
Yes.
So think that, when he left, that Scrooge was like, oh, look at him. He's poor, but he's happy, and he's in love, and he got married. And he's not going to say it, but he's thinking all that stuff, and I think that's if he's sitting at home or whatever, I think. And so like in the woo-woo world, you would call it having like the dark night of the soul, right? Where you have to go back and face what you've done, face your inner child, including me. If you had a bad childhood, you just block it out. And then later you have to like go back and face it and kind of heal that. And I think I've always thought that part with his meeting with his nephew and seeing how happy and how poor he is, because he even says that too when his nephew comes. He was like, Merry Christmas. He's like, what do you have to be merry about? You're poor enough. And he says, well, what do you have not to be merry about? You're rich enough, and I think that kind of slapped him in the face and got the ball rolling.
So it's such a great line. It's so good, because it's exactly also, historically speaking, what Dickens was seeing playing out right in front of him.
Yeah.
In that era. And so that's how you know that the story of Scrooge and everything and all the characters within it are way personal to him. He's seen all of that play out.
And it's dated that time.
Yes.
Yeah, like the year is that year that it came out. Yep. So it's not like back then, it's like today. Yeah. But this is what's happening today. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah, no, I'm so glad you brought that up, because the nephew's really important to the story. Because the nephew also is just kind of the embodiment of joy too, because he just loves, like, hey, uncle, like, oh, you're a crappy old man. But the nephew really knows his real soul is in there somewhere, otherwise he wouldn't bother with it. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you're not really bad. You're just an old crotchety, curmudgeon.
And I love you anyway.
And I love you, damn it.
Yeah.
And you're going to get you, I know you hear me. It's that thing. And so, and on some level, Scrooge does, on some level. So, it's a lot of pride and stuff that's messing with Scrooge's head. But, that I do believe that you're correct. I think that was probably the catalyst for that Ghost of Christmas Past experience. I also want to say something to everybody watching. is it's not like, oh, like bad people have to get like an intervention. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is about the character of Scrooge or Dickens, however you want to look at it, is that a higher, higher consciousness soul that is come into form, that kind of knows, kind of has an idea already about like the higher knowledge world. When that soul gets corrupted or whatever, it's the same threshold situation is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it is going to be like a final, like, hey, you're one of ours. Are you going to keep continuing down this path? And also, I believe, I've always thought this in that situation with the ghost of Christmas past coming to him, is how many etheric pricks of pain did he cause other people?
Oh, yeah.
Day, right? Like other people had that initial bam, like the kid that's like wanting a turkey or whatever. And he's like, he caused, it's like almost like he broke the prime directive in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, dude, like you've now caused a ripple effect in your general vicinity.
The whole town hated him.
Yeah, he just dominated because he was a powerful energy. And he was using it for bad, for all that stuff. And so it's just rippling through the community in a way that if just a regular bad guy, it's not going to do. It's because he was a very powerful soul and he was not utilizing all of that energy in a productive way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's, he gets in, because he has the meeting with the ghost of Christmas past and he goes on this journey and sees it like kind of a life review. There's that moment at the end of that where you could tell that he thinks he's like, okay, so that was good. Like,
yeah, it didn't faze him really. He was like, oh, that sucked, but you can't change the past, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, I guess, thanks for showing me.
Right.
And, but he was at least opened enough to remember, like, looking through the window a little more at what once was and what caused him to become who he is now and why. Yeah. So the middle one, the ghost of Christmas present, probably my favorite one because it's the embodiment of joy.
Yeah.
It's very scary, fierce, but it's like, it's so like, it's just, you can almost look at it like, it's like a Santa Claus type figure. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just, everything's just beaming, like, what you think of like just a happy, fat and happy, just joy, boundless joy.
Yeah.
Like essence of joy, like in every way. And like, that's like, the energy that if you meet it, like there is nobody that's going to be in a bad mood.
Yeah.
You're going along for the journey. You better strap in because this is, boundless joy. And, and so curmudgeons like that, I know you've probably known some in your life. I know, Lord, I have, but they have forgot joy. They have, and we'll get into our personal experiences because that was a main thing in one of my personal experiences that I was reminded of very sternly was about joy and what joy would, like, you can't forget your heart, like the joy you can love, but you got to have joy, real joy. And that, and being reminded of that is, it's like, the seriousness of all that is. And there's a lot of the people that are out there that are teaching a lot of esoteric stuff or whatever, and they're so serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the information's good, but the needle to get it in people is too thick.
Yeah.
you know, you got to loosen up around, you know, the collar a little bit and kind of like take all of it and kind of throw it out too at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a weird paradoxical thing. But I mean, if you've ever seen these bodhisattvas and stuff like that, like, or the Dalai Lama, you see them talking, they're always laughing.
Yeah.
You know, always. They're always like, you know, cracking jokes or whatever.
Yeah, very funny.
Like that guy remembers all of his past lives, bro. Like, think about like remembering all of your past lives, and you're still like, hey, why did the chicken cross the road? You know, like he's like a kid, you know? And so, I mean, his whole face scrunches up like that. And you know, it's my favorite thing. I love it so much. And, you know, he'll mess with somebody and grab their ear and they're like, you know, but he's teaching that's a very unique lesson. It's like, hey, you're joy. You're a kid too.
Yeah.
You know, because kids really are all little Buddhas. You know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
They are. They're just baby Buddhas. But yeah, so that Scrooge has to have fun. And then that is really in that journey of seeing the present. And he's, you know, and he's just, you know, his breath's getting taken away. He's being flown all over the place like, whoa, you know, and then eventually you have to just let go and just allow. You have to allow that fun and that joy to wash over you. And then that's when the whole heart just goes, you know. So,
and I have some notes that I wrote down too that I wanted to talk about this particular garden, if you don't mind.
That's my soda, sorry.
So I noticed the Ghost of Christmas Present is the only one that Scrooge had to look for. The first one came up to him. The last one came up to him. But the second one in the book, he's like waiting around. He's like, okay, where are you? And then he sees the light under the door and he's afraid to open it. And he's like, are you in there? Just come in already. He had to go find the present. And how happy, just exactly, I wrote that down too, what you said, how happy that one was when the past is hurtful, the future is scary. And that's where most people live. They're living in the past or they have anxiety and worried about the future. But if you could live in the present, you would be happy and full of joy.
Oh, you nailed it.
Yeah.
There it all is.
That? And then the other one too, he's on top of a bounty. He's got his horn of plenty. Like, that's, you know, that it's so cliche and so corny, but it's so true. Like, they call it the present because it is a present. You know, it's a gift. The present is a gift to us to live into it. And I think it's interesting that spirit dies as he goes through his thing. He gets older, he turns gray. And at the end, he's old and he dies. And he says, are you going to die? And he said, yeah, at midnight. So think about that too, being born every morning and dying every night. Instead of seeing your life like this, just try to think about this. Now, I'm not saying don't plan ahead and pay your bills and stuff like that, but just to, I mean, could you imagine just every morning being reborn and it can be anything you want instead of being like, oh, in 2 days I have to go to the dentist or I have to pay a bill or something. And you're so focused on the future. And so you're running your present, or you're still mad about what someone said on Facebook yesterday, or your mother-in-law, or someone at work said something to you last week. Like, you know what I mean? Like, live in the present and you'll be full of joy, right?
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but.
No, it's a doing, right?
Yeah.
It's a doing. It's not it's never done. And it's such a lesson of being worthy of, you know, higher consciousness and higher knowledge. That's really one of the big steps that you have to take is, you know, in every kind of across the board training of the initiate, an adept, or whatever it is, or a monk or a priest. It's being in in a conscious now awareness and being aware of your thoughts, you know, like, and thoughts are things, right? And not letting this run away with
Yeah.
you into, because boy, it'll run to the future real quick. And God, I hate it when it runs to the past, but sometimes it does. And yeah, it's like, oh, and yeah, you just nailed it though. That's exactly it. It's such a beautiful, beautiful, like, metaphor of just, he wakes up and and then like at midnight, yeah, and he's gone. And it's that just seizing of the day, that carpe diem thing.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, it is easier said than done, but I think that it is a practice that you must undertake if you are wanting to be of a higher conscious state. And it is probably the thing, I'll say, me personally, I struggle with that more than anything else, is that, like, I will catch myself going off on, like, like letting something just run away, and then I go, okay, all right, what's now? What's now? What can I do now? How can I be now? How can I change the atmosphere of this room right now? And pulling it back. And it's like, it is like a workout, man. And it's really hard to do if you've had a lack of sleep, if you're, you haven't eaten right or something like that. Then you've got the body working against the mind. It's a whole thing. And I think that's, another thing that is, people always forget, is that it's like, yeah, the mind is part of it, but it's an integration of everything, like, of not, like, you're feeling a little queasy and like, and run down, but that can't, you've got to be able to separate that feeling and thought so that you can stay in that mindset, and be in control of it, be your own, your own master, if you will, of your day. But yeah, I love the way that you put that though. That's so perfect. It's so perfect. That's exactly it.
Thanks.
And yeah, that's exactly it. And that is what joy is. They say animals live in that state. Like, I've always thought that was beautiful. Like when Dr. Rupert Sheldrake did his big thing on the morphogenic field, and how, like, it's the great book of, like, your pets know, like, no matter if your schedule changes, they know when you're going to arrive home. And that it's like what happens in between, and they don't have a view of time like that. It's just like, here you are, and like, yep. And it's that joy.
And then they definitely live in the present.
Yes. And so they're always happy. Even if you're 2 hours late, they're still happy. Like, they're still happy that you're like, okay, so now, and kids are a lot like that too. But it's a wonderful thing. And it is a state of just like boundless joy. And it's so, I think that's also like why, like in a lot of Christ teachings, he says, be like the children, like, of just that curiosity and of everything being new and exciting, and, and having that state of mind is really, I mean, man, the whole world would change, right? Like in a second, if everybody could get on board, but I love that. So yeah, so in the Dickens story, like Scrooge gets into that, he has basically his heart chakra opened, right? And that's the portal to the higher self, is that has to be open. Some, not to get into the weeds here, but a lot of the kind of darker ritual black magic with the K people, they try to bypass that. They bypass the heart to just jump directly to the mind. And then that's why it's always bad news bears. Yeah. And so he gets that, and at the very end of that, he's like, "Whoa, he's got to go away." Like, he's really getting into it,
he's enjoying that feeling of love and joy that he hadn't had in 50 years or something.
Right. And then we come to the greater guardian of the threshold, which is, yes, a formidable character, always represented usually with the cloak, what we would perceive as death. And it's that thing that humans have where it's like, if you can't see something's face, it's like horrifying, usually. But it's the, ghost of Christmas future, right? So I've always looked at that part of that story as like, is Scrooge being shown that like, this is how you affect your world.
Yeah. Here's what everybody else saw of you. Yeah.
This is the damage that you have incurred.
Mm-hmm.
And here's behind the scenes of things that you had no idea because you haven't bothered to take a look, like a Tiny Tim and the struggles that were going on right under his nose.
Yeah.
Right under his nose the whole time. And he wouldn't have been able to perceive any of that of any importance at all had he not gone on the journey with the ghost of Christmas Present.
Yeah.
He would not have been open to any, or without the first one. But all of it was staging up.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Had to be in that order. Yeah.
Had to be. And by the way, you know what's hilarious right now is that my chair is slowly turning. So like at some point it's just gonna be the back of my head. Okay. I'm like this, and it's like
well, I'm nursing like a little bit of a cold, so you'll have to excuse me if I
oh dude, it's
have to do my thing.
Mountain cedar. My dad's a walking farmer's almanac, and he will be happy to tell you what you are suffering from. Which is like, well, it's mountain cedar. Okay, well, no, that's what it is. Oh, okay, all right. I'm telling you, it blew in, blah, blah, blah. He tells you all about it, and he's always right. So I just go, all right.
Dads are always right.
That's your superpower. You know about what all is in the air. But yeah, so the greater guardian of the threshold, and I'll get to what that means in a minute, but we will. But yeah, so him seeing like how he is a pivot point in his universe, in his immediate thing, how he's rippled out, he's affected the community, how people see him. Is this the way you want? And then when they pan over and he sees like, but where am I? And he sees his own like tombstone, right? That's the real death of the ego right there. That's what that is, because that's when he fully breaks, know, because it's like all this is like, oh God, this is awful, but it's like, and you die too, and that's like, oh, it's a finality that he's never bothered to look at before.
Yeah.
And what is it like, the significance of that? And like, yeah, you've affected your world like this, but you're going to be 6 feet under just like everybody else.
And your chains are waiting for you, and they're a lot longer than Jacob Marley's were.
Exactly. Oh.
Yeah.
And so and just how it was always portrayed as just like desolate, quiet, like just nothing, there's nothing. And he went from that huge amount of joy and all that vibrancy to that, and like, oh. And that's when he does the thing where he's just like begging for his life, begging, give me one more chance to make this, just please. I see now, and what must I do to be of service to thee? Like, I have now chosen of whom I will serve this day. It's all of that. And a profound, you could even liken it to like it is a near-death experience because
yes. Yeah, I thought about that too. It's definitely a near-death experience with the life review and all that. And yeah, I think it definitely is a near-death experience.
and I think a lot of near-death experiences where it's like you're flatlined, all that, you're seeing yourself, and yes, it's an out-of-body deal, but I think many of those that happen to just what we would call just regular people, that are like, I was a truck driver. And then like all of a sudden, right, they're like,
Yeah.
got a new perspective of everything.
Yeah.
I think that those situations were so absolute to where it was like, all right, like, they would have blown off just a dream or just you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it had to be like an actual death
Mm-hmm.
experience before they before it fully clicked, like,
Yeah.
and so that is a classic threshold guardian situation,
Mm-hmm.
with those people too that have those real legit, like what's that doctor that was like total atheist, everything, he wrote all the books, he's been on a million things, I know you know who I'm talking about, I can't think of his name, but he's one that like, he was like a surgeon,
Mm-hmm.
and he died on the operating table, and he was like seeing everything, and he's like, well, they're not hearing me, they need to do this, and
Yes. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And what a profound change that guy has had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was a Sour Patch Kid before.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and did not believe in anything remotely afterlife or nothing.
Yeah.
And that might have been the only way to get through to him. So like in the Scrooge story though, when he comes back, and you know how like they always portray like after he's had this meeting with the greater guardian, the greater guardian of the threshold, who's like death, right, has to show you the hardest things, or you have to face it. It's like you have to face the death of your ego, you have to face
Yeah.
all of it. And if you face it with courage and the willingness to move forward,
Right.
and to move on,
You want to change. Yeah.
yes. And it's like when Scrooge comes back from that experience and wakes up, like, the sun is brighter, the children's laughter outside is amazing to him, and that effervescence of like, joy and everything is just like, and he doesn't care what anyone thinks anymore.
Yeah.
Like he's not thinking like, oh, they're gonna think I'm weird now because of like, it's like, because it's the truth. It's like,
Yeah.
when you have those experiences that are that profound, it's like, well, it doesn't matter if y'all all think I'm crazy, because I know what I have lived. I know that this is the way. I know it. And I always laughed at that one line though, when he's like, what's the kid say? He's like yelling up at the window, and he goes, what's he call the turkey? He calls it something.
The goose.
It's a goose. Yes.
A goose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, shillings for a Christmas goose or whatever. And then it's like this little like ragamuffin kid, and everybody, like his nephew and stuff, they all just like warmly open, like,
yeah. Oh, that part always makes me cry. The forgiveness,
oh,
forgiveness always gets my heart. And it's like,
me too.
And he's so timid. He's like, I know you guys are making fun of me, and they're like, come on in. Like, that touches me so much.
And then seeing it through how they always show it through the window.
Yeah.
And like you see that whole scene, and you're like, ah.
Well, and how it comes full circle, how he starts the beginning of the movie here. He goes through his journey. He's up at the very top with the joy and the love and all that. Then he has to go back down. So what the Ghost of Christmas Future is showing him is that same level of vibration where he started. But now, since he's been through that, it's, he's back to where he started, but it sucks. Like he's been there and he's been in the mud for so long, he had got used to it. But then to get out of it, and then to come back, he's like, oh, hell no. So now he is able to go back up to that himself.
Right.
And that's the change that you have to have. That's the knowledge of not thinking something is going to make you happy. Yes, the spirit showed him how to be happy, but he didn't wake up and say, oh my God, I just realized I'm rich and I don't ever have to work again. Like, he didn't, you know what I mean? That wasn't it. He understood it was joy and giving other people's joy and community. And then, you know, when Tiny Tim doesn't die and he lives, that I think the fact that that little boy was going to die, but his life or death depended on Scrooge is, boy, if that's not a slap in the face. It's like, you have the money to help this kid with the help he needs. And if you don't, he's going to die. Like, and he,
that's
you know,
right.
he did. He saw Tiny Tim's death before he saw his. Boy, could you imagine?
And that's that thing though with that has transcended time with Dickens telling that story, is that's the social kind of commentary of like,
Yes.
think about
Yeah.
all of the trillionaires and billionaires and whatever in the world, and like, what could, like, if you not gave to a charity, but if you personally
Mm-hmm.
went and changed
Yeah.
someone's life, and it was, you were the reason why they lived or died,
Yeah.
you know. And I love that realization that Scrooge has, where he's like, not only do I have myself back, like the real me, but, you know, I can do something about this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can actually do something about this situation here. And then I think we come full circle to Dickens, where that was where Dickens as a person got. Like,
Yeah.
once he became of note and started being like respected or whatever, one of the big things that he was known for was he was such a reformist of like drawing attention to the sweatshops and the, you know, and the poverty of families, and saying like, you know, we wouldn't be selling. I think it was a great thing about like, he would talk about like how like the most profitable business in London was the shops that sold gin, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
like, yeah. And he said, you know, he's like, and the more poverty that, and the more suffering that we have, you know, the more money the gin shops are going to make. Like, you know, it's like, this is not a source of like, oh, look at our industry of gin. Isn't this wonderful? You know, he made a very public statement about that and was like, no, this is a barometer of the social environment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this has no bearing, because the rich are buying the gin and so are the poor.
Yeah.
But for very different reasons.
Yes.
But, you know, they're both wanting to not see like the reality of their conditions, you know, but yeah. And so, very fascinating thing. But like, yeah, I love I love a redemption story more than any other kind of story.
Yeah.
And that is really I think the thing with any really great story is seeing the full circle of somebody who you think like there's no hope at all. I hate anything where it's like like it's hopeless, like movies where it's just like there's no hope and everybody dies, blah. It's like, I can't stand that. You know, but where there's just a little tiny light of fire there, you know, there's hope. And it's just such a great reminder, that story. I mean, I know there's a lot of stories that are similar to that, but I think that one is the reason why it's still being told is because we all on some level understand probably more than we think we do about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and we're still kind of going through that too. I mean, there's still the difference between rich and poor isn't as great. We've leveled out a little bit, but there's still I mean, that was only 150 years ago, you know, or 170 years ago, whatever. Like, we're still, I mean, you could still apply a lot of that today with the rich people not caring about anyone who's poor, I mean, it's still, I think why it's carried so long over the years is because it's still relatable to, you know, every every generation.
Yes.
I mean, even now with big pharma and all that kind of stuff, I mean, the sicker gets sicker. I mean, okay, well, great example. The guy who got, in New York City, I don't know what words I can say and what I can't say on social media, but you know what I'm talking about. He was the president of United Healthcare or whatever. They're saying that the guy who, the gunman, that his motive was something like someone in his family, wife, mom, somebody couldn't pay for the healthcare they needed and died. And I guess he was like seeking revenge or something. That's something I had heard. So, I mean, there it is in 2024, not condoning what he did. I'm just saying that shows you that people are dying because they don't have the healthcare that they need and nobody cares.
No, I think we all witnessed that pretty extensively during the year of 2020, where it was, everything was gaslighting all the way around. You didn't know what information to trust or where it was coming. And then now looking back in some of the lawsuits that are happening now, and I think that, and I hate to say this, but I think that, and I'm not condoning this at all, but I think that like that United Healthcare CEO, I think that's one of many things like that we will begin to see.
Yeah. Oh, I got the same thing too.
Yeah.
I got this download that was like, this is just the beginning. And I was like, wow.
I think there's going to be a lot of those CEOs that are not going to be able to walk on the street.
People are getting tired.
I mean, there's real PTSD. I mean, when you really go through like something that, and you find out, I know I have a personal experience with this, where you find out later, after it's too late, of what was really going on, and that it had to do with money and pushing certain things. And the tremendous pain that you went through. There's a level of like, fire that you can get within you, and it is dangerous. Yeah. And if you aren't a balanced person, you might act on that, Yeah. And that's the real, I mean, this kid that they found, the guy, I was looking into that beforehand. He was, he was valedictorian of this very, prestigious school. So we're not talking about like some, derelict freak that's just out there with the guy, no.
So did they capture him?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. Today.
Well, I don't watch the news. They got him today.
No, it was on my feed. And I looked into a few sources on it that are trusted, like not like mainstream media spin, but, real journalists who are like, reporting, not too much because I don't know a lot, but they know his name, and they've got him. He's being held in custody, and we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, his backstory is very interesting, and who knows? But there's it's not surprising. That's the thing. It's really like when I saw the footage of that man being shot or whatever, it's like, well, I'm not surprised that happened, because I think that like the more truth comes out about everything, not just healthcare, but like really everything, I think it's going to be very hard for people to hide. And I think that you're going to have a lot of people who are just going to, go for broke and are like, hey, I got nothing to lose, Yeah,
it's sad. It is all the way around.
It is. It's unbalanced, and it's like, I don't root that kind of like, yay. No, I don't cheer that on.
No, because then, I mean, that guy, I don't know the guy who got shot, what he was like or who he was, but imagine he was a Scrooge and he didn't get a chance to have his redemption. I mean, murder is bad anyway around. Like, people need to, I don't know. When it comes to stuff like that, I'm like, I guess everything happens for a reason. I don't know. I'm just an observer. I'm just on this planet as a watcher. I'm like, okay, whatever. But that everyone deserves a chance at a redemption, and a lot of people aren't going to, I think. But who knows? Maybe now that people are starting to awaken. I mean, that book was, again, written so long ago, and we're talking about it, and other people are out there talking about it. Maybe people will start hearing it, and they won't be so scared, because before, and I think anything talking about that kind of stuff, just like, I don't know if you said it on the last podcast or if you just were saying it to me about the Bible having so many stories of like paranormal stuff happening, and like
it's the whole thing.
The whole thing, and people worship this book. But yet, if something happens, like, oh my God, perfect case. Like my dad, again, grew up in a haunted house. I've been standing next to my dad, seen stuff move, and I look at him, and he's like, "Oh, condensation or something," and I'm like, "Get out of here!" Like, condensation didn't make a glass move 3 feet. Okay, maybe a couple inches, but not 3 feet across the table. Come on. So he always is like, no, and he's like, that's bad, and that's not this and that. And then he goes and reads the Bible, and I'm like, what? So I think we're starting, and I love that you said that like, really, you guys don't want to talk about ghosts or whatever, and if you can see ghosts, you're yeah, it's the devil that you can, the reason why you can see this stuff, but yet you worship a book that's full of it. I love that you said that, because I never thought of that before, but it's so true.
Yeah, you crack open a book about the supernatural. Like, that's what you crack open. Like, oh, I don't understand it, and all the stuff I guess I also don't understand. But I mean, I don't know. But
yeah,
my grandmother used to do that too. And she would be up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And this is a sidebar before we get into the other stuff. It's so funny. So she would sleep like in her room. It would be so pitch black that you could not even, I mean, really though, like you could not even see anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Now for me, and if you watched our first episode, you'll know. Like, I'm like, all right, I already know what's coming at me, okay, and I'd like to have 360 awareness of it before, like, and so when I would be like, stand over there, whatever, and it was like one of those like I Love Lucy rooms where there was the 2 twin beds. So when I would like stay over there, she would be like in the other, like in this one, and I'd be in this one or whatever. And I think she knew what was she knew because I was telling her, but anyway. And so she would be in there with me, but then she would literally tape the blind shut, like tape, and it would be pitch black. And I just kind of watch that go down, and I'd be like, why is it going to be that dark? You know, like, it's so dark up in here. And then she's like, I don't want any light. I mean, there could be like a pin of light coming through the thing, and then she'd be like, cover it up. But it was because she was seeing it too. She was seeing stuff too. And then she'd get up, and then she'd be in there reading the Bible. And and then I'd go, and she goes, well, Miss Melody's like, why seek the living among the dead? Okay, that's what they say. Why seek the living among the dead? And I said, I ain't seeking that. Okay, like I ain't seeking that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was so funny though. But yeah, it's like the most supernatural book ever.
Yeah.
Is the Bible. Like ever. Like, you got a talking snake in like the first part, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
All right, so the snake comes up to you like with the top hat, and he's like, hey. Like, I mean, yeah, that's totally normal.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway,
oh man.
And like, it's just that thing where it's like, okay, so it doesn't freak you out if it's like, you know, 2,000 years ago or before, but yeah, it's that. It's like, no, it's all still happening. It's just it's all still happening.
Look, I thought it up.
Huh?
Look. Did you see it?
I did.
They're agreeing with what we just said.
You got to understand that's not possible. What's
how
happening
did it
is not
happen? Nobody did anything. I don't know how it happened.
No,
The very first time we ever did this,
which
we got a
got
thumbs down because we said
mysteriously.
something probably that I shouldn't have said. And we got a thumbs down, and then everything got deleted. Remember, I was like, oh, that's crap. That's not real. We were making fun of it. We shouldn't have, is what I got later.
Yeah, we skimmed it too.
Yeah, we skimmed it. And then it all got deleted. And now you just said that and you got a thumbs up. So how did it happen?
It doesn't. This is this app.
You saw it, right?
No, I did. I caught it right there.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay! Well, I'm not surprised that this podcast tonight is going to be good because it's been a day. It's been a night and it's been a day because we've had some supernatural stuff happening since last night.
Oh,
leading up to this.
For sure.
It's been crazy. It's been crazy. Today's been a crazy day.
That's so funny. I'm sorry, guys. I'm giddy and I'm leaving all this in. Unless they don't want me to. Unless, hey, guardian angels, everybody, unless y'all don't want me to. Let us
know. Yeah.
Let me know. If it's cool, thumbs up, I guess, again. This is not a live stream, guys. So if you're watching this is actually not even like Skype. There is nobody that can come into this. This is a private studio session on a closed app. Okay, that is enclosed. Like it's not. So there are no features to add emojis. That does not exist in this, what we're doing. So what you just saw, we have seen it before, but it was a thumbs down. and then all of our 2 or 3 hours of footage just literally vaporized. Yeah. It was gone. And it was terrible. And so I was like, whoa, what happened to everything? And then, so this is crazy. I know she just said that. I'm just I'm affirming, like, on a technical standpoint, whatever just went down is not actually possible. Cool. Man, what a crazy, it's so cool. So glad we got it again because we were like, are we crazy? Did we see that? So what we said, did you just see it again? No. Okay. I thought you said that. I thought you said that. Oh, no. I was like, what we were saying just now that triggered that was, I was like, it's all still happening. Like all the stuff in the Bible and everything, like all of those stories are still happening now. It's just, it's like, I mean, you got to think like, who were the people that were writing all of that down? And they were mystics. They were the Essenes were really the record keepers and scroll keepers and they were mystics. Make no mistake about it. Everything about the tribe that Christ himself, or Jesus, who became the Christ himself, was a part of, they were of a mystical order that was very much rooted in, this kind of higher knowledge initiate training that we're talking about here. Where it's a holistic view. It's not, it wasn't the Judean law of, I only eat this on this day, which was super rigid and whatever. It was not that. It was a throwback really to more of the, ancient Egyptian mystery school stuff that was, which is a crazy thing to think about because that's all future thinking of where, we're in the season right now, but there's so much more to the Christ story than what is, and the story in and of itself, if it inspires you and you've just know the base level thing, great. If you, for me personally, that wasn't ever enough. I needed to know what was really going on there with, not just the 4 Gospels. I needed to know. I read, was really, really into like, but what was the original translation of this? And what was... Me too, yeah. Yeah. Because I knew it had been diluted and watered down over time, but I also knew that the essence of the teachings were still there, which is, all about love and loving thy neighbor and, and of being of service to others and, have a joyful heart and all of those things that are like, if you didn't, have anything else and all the supernatural stories surrounding it, and you just had that, that's enough.
That's exactly.
For a society to thrive and for the human being to thrive.
Yeah.
So that kind of always showed me like, wow, this is pretty, that in and of itself is kind of magical, that it could be pared down to its finer point, and it still is something that if everyone followed just that, then there would be global peace, there would be global love, there would be, you know, we wouldn't have, I mean, if that was the real practice. So beautiful thing. So wrapping up the Dickens thing, though, Dickens was definitely an initiate for sure. No question about it. Actually, sidebar on that is that he was a part of the OG ghost hunting group. I mean,
I heard that with, was it, the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle? It was with him. They were in a ghost hunting club together or something.
Yes. And now on the surface, their whole thing was to dispel, like they had, because there were a lot of charlatans in the day that were like, again, the mystic seance thing was really a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's probably another episode of like why that time period was there was such an influx of that, because that even goes into that's some deep waters of why that time period was. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But you know, their fascination with the unseen, it was much deeper than what they had wrote about. So they were you had all these high level thinkers that were a part of that. And they would meet in secret, and, you know, and then, they would debunk other stuff or whatever. But he was obviously trying to, during that time, make sense of experiences that he had.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of that, that training that he was undergoing, was like, you know, trying to see that skeptical thing, like trying to see like what is, like we all do, if you're trying to find out mysteries of the universe, you're trying to ask, like, what's a ghost, what's a spirit, what's an angel, what's a this, what's a that, like where does it all fit in? And it's not like anybody gets it right away.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
So the guardian of the threshold, I think that is that, and there's what's known as the lesser guardian, which doesn't mean that it's like, it doesn't matter. No. It's, and I think Rudolf Steiner kind of coined that phrase, but it's used as, there's other words other than lesser that you could use. But that would be, the lesser guardians are like they're known as being independent beings too, which I found that always very interesting. So like the first two are, you know, are not like the big one. The real test is that third one. The real test is like when you're having to sit down with that one, because you have been stepped up, you know, and not everybody gets stepped up from 3. Sometimes you get stepped up from 1 and then it jumps into another. But
I think it depends on where you are in your life and what you need.
It does. And it also, I want to make something very clear in case anybody's confused. They don't appear like how, like, you know, there's illustrations and everything. Quite literally, like how the first experience and then the second come to you is kind of like your tailor making of that experience. Like your higher self knows exactly how to organize that experience if it comes to that, and that will what you are shown in those experiences is it's exactly what you need, you know, and it's very individual, like how it appears. But the one thing that you can't, like, so if you're out there and you're like, I wonder if I've had that or whatever, like you've had crazy experiences with something or whatever, and you'll know because you're forever changed by it, first of all. Second of all, it's like something that's kind of sticky. It never gets out of your head, and you're always like, whoa, what was that? And it will come in a strange time, too. A time of change, a time of really kind of weighing out your options of like, who am I? What am I doing? It's, you're getting, I feel like that it comes at that those experiences come in at a point where it's like you have to take that next thing, like something either negatively or positively, whatever. But that's my experience of it. And it's going to be different quite literally for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I guess we can get into our personal experiences because I know people are fascinated.
I know that, like you said, they could look different or something, but let me tell you, that third one for me looks exactly like that. And in fact, I had made a joke to him, and I was like, why do you look like this again? So one of the reasons why we kind of got on this subject was because I was telling Melody about this experience that I had. And I know the difference between when I'm dreaming and when I'm out of body and when I'm visited and when I'm somewhere. I know the difference. I can tell. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, that's a weird dream. And then sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I was somewhere. I'm usually vibrating. It's usually like in my brain. There's a lot to it. So when I have this visitation from my guardian, who I didn't know what to call him at the time. So I'm telling Melody, I'm like, man, this really weird thing happened. And I said, well, I mean, I can tell the experience, but when I was telling Melody, she was like, well, that's a real thing. And I'm like, what do you mean? And you were the one who told me the name because I said, I guess he's like my spirit guide or something. I was like, he's there showing me this stuff. I don't know who he is. And when you were like, no, that's your guardian of the threshold. And it looks like the ghost of Christmas future because that was a real thing. So Melody is the one who taught me that it had a name and what it did and what it was. And then when I started researching, I was like, oh, this is a real thing, which I love that I had this experience first.
Yes.
Then I was validated later, which I love because then I don't feel so crazy. But I've got 3 good, actually I have 4 really good experiences with mine that I would like to share.
Please.
But whoever wants to go first, I don't care.
No, you go for it.
So, I think the first time was probably, so I had this really, really vivid, lucid dream, and he was there a little bit. And I call him he because that's what it feels like a he to me. Can't see him at all. Looks exactly like the ghost of Christmas future. Coming up, black hood, black this. There's no skeleton hands like in UC. There's no hands. Sometimes it'll point, but there's no. It's just weird because it's all telepathic. It speaks to you telepathic, and sometimes I'll talk to him and be like, "Why are you so tall?" or what, and he's like, "Pay attention," because I guess even on the other side of my astral body has ADD too. So
it's so great.
Because I'm like making jokes with him, and I was never scared of him. He was like a buddy. Like sometimes he would joke with me too, and how you like dig at each other's side, like, oh, yeah. He's like that. So I was never scared, but it took me a while. It took me until this morning actually to figure out why he was coming to me, but now I get it. And I'll share that in a minute. But so one of the experiences he was showing me, which was awful, 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 awful. I hate it. I wish I'd never seen it, but I understand that I had to. But I was working at a hotel. This was years ago, before I ever knew anything that this was a real thing. But I'm at this hotel and I'm working and I'm scared of this guy. Like I'm like a maid or something. And I'm scared of the guy who runs the hotel, but he's very good looking and very charming and just can I don't know, I was scared he was going to hurt me or kill me, but I also craved his approval. So we worked really hard for him. And then there's this big event in the town that I'm in and people are coming and my mom and dad come, which
and so this is not by the way, this is not you now, right?
No,
I'm clarifying for the audience.
No. This is a vision I'm having of a past life. Sorry.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
This is a vision of a past life.
I mean, I knew that, but I wanted you to say that. So.
Everything looks like turn of the century, dress, okay. Turn of the century, very much like that, right? Early 1900s. My mom and dad come to visit, and for this event that's in town, they stay at this hotel, right? I put them in a room, and it's so weird because the people looked like my dad now and my stepmom now, but I knew even as I was seeing it that they were showing me that it looked like them to understand that that was my mom and dad.
A relationship.
Yeah, like that I knew that was them, but it doesn't mean that that was them. I just knew that it was like, this was your mom and dad. So I put them in a room, getting ready. Well, halfway through, I realized, or somebody told me I put them in the wrong room. And they were like, go get them out of that room right now. I go in and I can't open it. I can't like open the lock, and I look in through like the peephole. Somehow I can see through, and I see them in there. And their room it looks like a normal room. Okay. Their room is being filled with gas. And I can't get them out. And I'm like, give me the keys, give me the keys. And the guy, this charming, oh God, he was just like the devil, like beautiful, but like, oh my God, the scariest thing, like creepy feeling, but like almost like you felt like you had to obey him. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
It's that magnetism thing.
Yeah, it was like, I'm drawn to you, but I shouldn't be kind of thing. It was awful. He was like, it's already halfway through. He's like, we can't. He's like, if you open it, the gas is going to come out. They're almost dead. They're going to be brain dead anyway. If you get them out, you need to just let them go.
Oh God.
And I was screaming and crying. And I was like, no. And so I watched them like choke and then they like fall on the floor and they die. Right.
Ugh.
And I'm crying. And he's like, you should have put them in the right room. Nobody can know about this, whatever. And I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? And after a little bit, the gas like clears out somehow, and somebody opens the door and gets them, and opens this secret like chute in the wall, puts the bodies in there, and the bodies go down the chute. And I'm like, where are they going? So I go down this really nice old hotel in the basement, and there's just these dead bodies everywhere. And I noticed it was some of the people who had like checked in but had never checked out. And that's when I was told, like, this is what we're doing. We're bringing people in, not everybody, because we can't kill everybody who's in there. We kill some of the people. We have their bodies down there, and we're selling them to the people who are trying to be doctors, like the scholars, like black market selling bodies so they have cadavers to operate on, or whatever, science, medical stuff like that. And they're making a killing at it. I mean, they're making like $100 a body, and it was a lot of money back then. And this guy's super wealthy, and it's like hush hush, and we can't tell anybody about it. And he was like, if you leave, like, I will kill you. I will find the rest of your family and kill them. Now you're here and you know about it, so you have to continue helping me. And from what I didn't see much further than that, but what I know is like, yeah, I did. Like, I helped this guy kill a bunch of people. So, and sometimes when I have these, I'm in the body of the person I'm looking at, the, turn of the century person, and I'm seeing out of their eyes. And then sometimes I'm always up here looking down at it. Okay. And sometimes I'll see me and this person talking and playing it out. And then sometimes I'm in the body, and then sometimes I'm out. Well, the times that I'm out and I'm like up in the corner of a room looking, that's where my guardian is. He's there with me, and he's so tall. He's like 3 feet taller than I am. And there's just definitely hooded. I mean, just the ghost of Christmas Future, but no, there's blurry lines when it comes to there's no bottom to him. It just kind of fades away. Right. Mm-hmm. So he's there, but I feel comfortable with him. So that happens. So I wake up and I'm like sweating and I'm vibrating and I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, that felt so real, but that had to have been a crazy dream, because how the hell at the turn of the century you're going to have a room where you can put gas in there and it not go other people and this and this and this? Well, you know how synchronicities happen. I found a book, and a friend of mine, he's the lead singer in a band. And anyway, when he comes to Atlanta once a year, I always bring him a book as a gift, right? Well, I was in Barnes & Noble like 2 or 3 days later, and I was like, this looks like an interesting book. And it was called something about science facts or something. And it kind of had like Frankenstein on the cover, and it was just a interesting looking book. So I'm going to give it to him. And so we're driving to the concert, my ex-husband, and I'm in the passenger seat, and I'm opening up the book, flipping through it. And I open up a page and I see the hotel. And it was called like the Hotel of Murders. And it showed the hotel and it was on a corner. I was like, oh my God, that looks just like the hotel that I saw. And I looked and I turned the page and it had a picture of the guy. And the guy was H.H. Holmes. And I saw his face and I almost crapped my pants. And I was like, what? And of course, I never told my ex that I had this dream or experience because he would have sent me to hell. But I'm just like silently freaking out in the passenger side. And I'm like, what? And I'm reading it. My eyes are welling up and I'm like, oh my God. And apparently this really happened. And it was the World's Fair in Chicago.
Yep.
People from all over were coming to this hotel.
It's
and
a horrible, it's sick.
It's real. And I did not know about it. And I had that vision first. So I helped this awful guy, this serial killer, who then, this is another weird thing that happened. When I was a kid, little, I remember waking up and screaming and being terrified of Jack the Ripper. How do I know who Jack the Ripper is? Okay, I'm a kid. Okay, I don't know how I first heard his name. I don't know, but I would be terrified of him. Wow. I find out that this H.H. Holmes guy, you know the story. If you haven't had the story, they capture him. He's put in prison. They hang him. Then word comes out that the body that they hung was not him. They dig the body up and it wasn't him. Nobody knows what happened to him. The conspiracy theory is that he got out of the country, went to England, and continued his stuff there and became Jack the Ripper. I don't know if that's true. I feel like it is in my heart because I was terrified. If you even said Jack the Ripper, I would run screaming. But I wouldn't have had that knowledge as a kid. I don't think I would have had that knowledge back then. I don't know how I had that knowledge. I don't know. I'm just telling you what happened. But that was one of the things that I was shown that I did. I didn't want to do it.
I see why you were shown that, though.
I do now. So that also correlates with the other stories. So another one, there's a whole Civil War thing that happened, and it's very, very personal to me. So I don't, maybe I shouldn't skim, but I'm going to because it's pretty juicy. But basically in the 1860s, this is a past life that I saw. I'm looking at this room. Here's my guardian. Hey, how you doing? No, good to see you. Oh, what are you going to show me today? I'm in this room and I am a lady of the night. You know what I mean? And I'm very independent and I can feel my thoughts because in every single lifetime, I'm still like this brain. Like I would still say the things that I would say now back then, kind of like the same attitude, sort of.
Yeah, that's that soul imprint, you know?
Yes. So that was the only way that women could make money and have any kind of independence back then, was to be Lady of the Night. So the lady who was my madam was like my best friend. I had like my own hours. I could work when I wanted to. Like, it sounds so stupid now, but like back then, that's the only way to have any kind of financial freedom. So I was a Lady of the Night. So this guy comes up. Such a long story, so I'll try to make it short because
no, I'm so into it. Just keep going. Yeah.
So
I know people are into it too. Don't worry. We're all like. So.
This is one of my favorite stories, but it's it's kind of weird telling it. So I go there and I'm at the top of the door. So there's this old house. You open the door and you can go to a room here to the right, and it looks like a library smoking room. There's a bunch of guys sitting around smoking cigars and talking. You can go in the door and go straight upstairs. You can go to the left, and it's like a little saloon, kind of. There's a bar, 3 or 4 little round tables where you can play poker and cards. It's full of soldiers, okay? This is in the Civil War, and it was in Alexandria, which is not that Alexandria. But Washington, D.C., Alexandria is right south of it, right? And it's my turn to, do whatever. And I'm at the top of the stairs and everybody's like, come on, do it. It's your birthday, whatever. Well, this guy comes up and he looks very shy and he takes his hat off and he's like, I don't really want to do this. He's like, they just want me to do it. And I'm trying to boost morale. And he's like, honestly, I just want to get away from everybody for a few minutes and just breathe. Can we just sit down and talk? And I was like, hey, money's money. I don't care. And I noticed when he came in, he had 4 stars. And I was like, oh, damn. I was like, you're somebody important. And he was like, yeah, I am. And I was like, no. I was like, don't tell me your name because I never wanted to hear anyone's name, because when I would be downstairs playing poker or just being whatever, and they were like, oh, did you hear so-and-so died? It would make me really upset. So I was like, I don't want to know any names, because I don't want to know if you live or die, because that's all they talked about was like the horrors of war, right? So I said, don't tell me your name. And so he sat down and he treated me like such a lady and such a person, and was so nice and warm. And we talked until, like, I don't know, hours and hours and hours. And then he's like, I'm really tired. I think I want to lay down. I said, well, here, like, use my bed. You know, you're this great general. I knew that stars meant general. I was like, you're this great general. I was like, here, lay down. And he took his boots off and he laid down in his uniform on the blanket and just like passed out, went straight to sleep. Well, I didn't want to, like, I wasn't ready to go to sleep. So I took his boots and I went and cleaned them in the bathroom and cleaned them. Those covered in mud and stuff. And I came back and he had gotten, I can't remember if he was I think he might have just taken off his coat or something. I don't know. But he was in the bed. So I get in the bed next to him. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. So, but he's in the bed and I'm like looking at him and the moonlight's coming through the window. And I'm like, you know, he's not really handsome, but there's something about him that I like. He just seems like a nice guy. And I looked down and I'm like, I've never kissed anyone with a beard before, because I'm telling you, I know this is going to sound like Pretty Woman, but that really is a thing, or was a thing, that you did not get emotionally attached to your customers.
Sure.
Okay. You were there to do your business and leave. So there was no hugging and loving and kissing, because then the customer would get emotionally attached to you. And then they would like stalk you and stuff. So you had to make it very aware at the beginning that, hey, this is this, and that's it. You know, like, don't be trying to come around. Don't send me flowers, none of that stuff, right? Because they would fall in love very easy. So the kissing was not a thing. So I look at him and I'm like, I've never kissed a man with a beard before. I'm going to just kiss him and see. He's asleep. So I lean over and I kiss him. And when I pull back, his eyes are open looking at me. And I was like, like busted, right? I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm just kind of over him like, shit. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then he leans up, girl. I can still feel his hands behind me. He grabs me and just kisses me like the most passionate way. Okay. And then like rolls me onto my back and is like kissing me and like getting into the positions like you would. And I stopped and I said, I can't. I was like, I can't. I was like, you're too good of a man and you're going to hate it in the morning. Because we had just spent this whole night talking about his wife and his kids and whatever. And I was like, I can't. I was like, I'm sorry. I don't want to do this to you. And he was like, okay. So he lays down. And then I remember laying on my back and being like, damn, like, why did I do that? He's probably mad at me. And so I turn over on my side away from him. And I'm like, man, this night was going so good. I just ruined it. And he rolls over and he put his arm around me and we went to sleep. And the next morning, I wake up and he's sitting over there and he's putting his clothes on and there's like a page boy or something at the door, this young person who's like telling him the day, like, we got to get going, whatever. And I was like, oh, you got to go? He's like, yeah. And he's like, thanks for, a great night. It was nice talking to you. I was like, yeah, thanks for treating me like an actual person, whatever. So he gets up and I, at my door, because you can go at the top of the stairs, you could go right or left and there's a couple other rooms, but my door faced down the steps and down the door. Well, at the front door, there was like kind of like a little desk or something, like a podium, and where the madam would be to people coming in and out, right? He goes down the stairs and he pulls out this handful of coins and like money, and he slams it down on our desk and he says, nobody sees her but me, and walks out. And I was like, okay. And she gets the money. She looks up at the stairs and I'm like this. And I run to the window and I open the window and look out and he's mounting the horse and it's very early. Everything's still foggy, and the sun's just coming up and he puts on like his duster or whatever. And he has the collar popped and he looks up at the window because it's like behind the house kind of where you can see. And I can only see his hat's down low. He's got his collar up like this. So I can only see this much of his head. And he smiles because I can tell because his eyes kind of wrinkled. Look, I'm like shaking. Wow. And he smiles at me and he rides off, right? Girl, that dream had me all over the place, especially because a couple times I would come back out of my body, in and out, and watch it, right? And so anyway, long story short, several dreams, and I can get into more of them. I'm actually writing a book because there was like 6 more visits I had with him, and I ended up learning who he was, which I did not like back then, but it ended up being Ulysses S. Grant.
Unreal.
And yeah, and I'm from Georgia. Okay, we do not talk about him. We don't talk about the war. Like, I have no connection with him. I do know that when the first time I ever went to Washington, D.C., between the Capitol building and then you have like the mall, right? There's a statue of him.
Yeah,
with the horse.
I've been there.
And he's got that duster up like this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was a statue of him. I'm just walking around Washington, D.C. like, cool, I've never been here before. And I saw a sign that said Grant Monument. And I was like, what? When I saw him on the horse with that collar up like that, I bawled. I wanted to climb the statue and like kiss his face and like sit on that horse with him. Like I was like, I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to climb up this statue.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one. So
Whoa.
now I'm obsessed with Ulysses S. Grant. And I did research too, because I knew what year it was, where I was, what time of year it was. So I said, where was he this time? And he was at that during April of 1864. He was in, what was it, 63? I got to look at my notes. He had a, just outside of Washington near the coast. It's called Fort something or Point something. That's where he was like stationed, where he would go in and out. And he was there in the month of April. So he wasn't like somewhere else in the country. He was there. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What a crazy, powerful experience.
Yeah.
And
I think
also, like, just the contrast between the two.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I needed to be shown that one. I needed to be shown the one of Grant. And then the third one shook me to my core. And when it was happening, I was pissed. And I told him, I was like, I'm mad at you for showing this to me. Real quick, this one was the 1930s out in the Midwest somewhere. You know how there was like the Dust Bowl?
Oh, yeah.
Back then? I remember this
Very
house was like
horrible.
a couple of houses, 2-story houses, small farmhouses, but they were kind of close just together. No grass anywhere, just dust everywhere, dirt everywhere. I'm at this one house. We just moved there. There was a little girl at the next house, and I asked if I could go meet her and play. My mom says yes. I go over, and this girl goes, do you want to go upstairs? And she meant upstairs into the attic. And she's like, this is where I can play. Okay, cool. So we're playing, and do you want to stay for dinner? And like, I just met this girl, and she's like, okay. And she's like, well, here's my trunk where I keep my dolls. And it was this big trunk. And she takes her dolls out. She's like, will you be my doll? And I was like, yeah, sure. So we're going to play dolls. I did not want to. Again, I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I'm a people pleaser. Okay. I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to say no, and I want to make everybody happy. So I get in this trunk. She closes it and locks it. And she's like, I'm going to go eat dinner and I'll be back. I was like, what? No, don't leave me. Don't leave me. She's like, you're my doll. Go to sleep. I'm going to go eat dinner and be back. She goes downstairs. She eats dinner. She doesn't come back up. My mom comes over looking for her, and she knows that if she said she put me in the trunk, she's going to get in trouble. So she's like, oh, she went home. I don't know where she is. She goes to school the next day, the little girl. She comes into the thing and she's like, I can't let you out now. I've been here all night. I can't let you out now, but when I get home from school, I will. She leaves. Oh. It is 100 degrees, okay, in there. Oh, and I'm hot, sweaty. I want to get out. I'm cramped up. I can't stretch or anything. I remember screaming and crying and clawing. And before that part happened, whenever I'm standing there watching all this, and I see me as a little girl and this other little girl, and I see my guardian, and I'm like, ooh, what are you going to show me? Because he had just showed me a series of dreams with Grant, which were incredible. So I was kind of like, ooh, what are you going to show me? Like, I was all happy and stuff. And he's like, just pay attention. I'm like, okay. I'm like, why are you so tall? Doesn't answer me. Like, okay, we're watching. The kids are playing. Get in the trunk. She goes to eat. Right now, I'm not worried about it. And so I'm like, dude, why do you look like the ghost from Christmas Future? And I start laughing because I think he's going to laugh with me and joke, because we usually joke like, hey, look what you did. Oh, you idiot, whatever. And he doesn't laugh back. And I'm like, for real though? I'm like, you look like, that book, The Ghost of Christmas Future. I'm like, why do you look like that? I'm like, why did you choose this form? And he goes, he said, you cannot see my face because your human brain could not understand it. And when he said that, it kind of didn't scare me, but intimidated me, like, oh God, like, oh my God, what do you look like under there? Like, now I'm really freaked out. Like, is my brain going to explode if I see what you look like? Like, whoa, that's okay. That's kind of creepy. And then I was like, what's up with you? Like, we're usually joking, like, what's up? And he was like, pay attention. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, I got to stop acting foolish and pay attention. And then, yeah, so then I'm trapped in there, can't get out. Then I go into that body, which
oh my God.
Sucks. It's the worst thing that I've ever been through, alive or whatever. As a being on this planet, it's the worst thing I've ever been through. I mean, being stuck, clawing out, screaming, banging, hot. I mean, eventually I die. And there were several times I came out and I was standing with the guardian watching and I went in and I'd be like, no, I don't want to be in here again. And I'd come out and I'd go back in. And I was like, it was awful. So then my mom comes. So the little girl comes home from school. She opens the trunk and she looks in and she can tell that I'm dead. Like I'm all sweaty. My hands are bleeding. There's claw marks everywhere. And I've just, I guess, heat exhaustion. I don't know, whatever. And she's like, oh my God, I'm going to be in so much trouble. And she's crying. She didn't mean to. She didn't know. She was just a kid. But she's like trying to wake me up and she's like, oh no, she's going to be so much trouble. So she closes the lid and she pushes it into the back of the attic.
Oh
and she puts this stuff over it, like blankets and like a rocking chair in front of it and all this stuff. And she goes downstairs and my mom's coming in and she's like, I haven't seen her since last night. She didn't go to school. Where is she? And the little girl's like, I don't know. I haven't seen her. And nobody ever talks about it. And so my parents just don't know what happened to me. So then I get like a fast forward, right? And I see this lady who looks like late 60s, early 70s. She's got on bell bottoms, cute top. She's got like one of those little like kerchief things that's tied and she's in the attic cleaning. I guess she just bought the house. She's moving stuff and she opens the lid and she sees the skeleton. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if any of this is true. If anyone's ever heard this story, or I keep getting Kansas, but if anybody has ever heard that, please let me know because I've tried to research, I've tried to look it up. But yeah, then my body was finally found. And I was pretty pissed at my guardian after that. That was the worst thing I've ever been through. This is the first time I've told the story in full because I don't even like talking about it. I'm very claustrophobic in this lifetime. Anytime I see on the news of a kid who's left in their car seat in a car and dies, I lose it.
I do too. That's one of my big.
It's awful. God. It's awful. It's the worst thing that can happen. And so then we start doing this. You know, that's when I called you and I was like, not only does he look like this, but I asked him joking, I'm like, dude, why do you look like this? And then you told me that was a real thing. Well, I always wondered. I was like, are you sure that it's the same thing that visited Scrooge? Because Scrooge was a bad guy. Like, I wasn't a bad person. I mean, I might have been a prostitute one life, but I was a good person. I'm a good person now. Like, why would I go through that? I don't understand. And it hit me this morning, okay? This morning, I was like, oh, like lightning bolt download was like, it's not that you were a bad person and had to change to be a good person. You just had to change. You had to change the path you're on. Because what I heard was like, when did those visions happen to you? And I was like, 2010 to 2015. Yeah, where were you? Oh, I was married to my ex-husband. Oh, duh. I was a people pleaser in every life. Being an empath, if you hurt someone's feelings, you feel their feelings. So you walk on eggshells all the time. You don't ever want to hurt anyone's feelings. You don't want to say no. You want to make everybody happy. Because when they feel joy, you feel joy. When they feel pain, you feel pain. I understand that now. I was with someone who I didn't want to be with, who was an abusive person, low vibration, told me I was going to hell all the time. And I never could leave him because every time I got close to being like, I don't think I want to be married to you anymore. Oh my God. It would be a nightmare, flip out, throwing things. I'm going to kill myself. And I'm like, no, I'll stay because I didn't want that person to be in pain. Now I get it. Because I also said, where have you been, guardian? Like, I like you. I like when you come around, usually, except for that one time. Where have you been? Like, I miss you. And it was like, oh, yeah, I'm not needed anymore because you got out, because I left my husband and I got out. And I think it was trying to say, like, if you don't stop being a people person and don't start standing up for yourself and having boundaries, you are going to die in some form or way, or you're going to have a bad life. You're going to have to come back and repeat it. So stop. And then I look at all those, and maybe the one with Grant was trying to show me like actual love, because me and him ended up having a relationship, and before our phones died, I don't want to get into all the other visions I had of him, but I do, like, those were the only time I had joy. And every night I would go to sleep and be like, please let me have visions of that time, because I was actually loved and it was great. And I'd never had that in any of my other lifetimes. So I think it was trying to say, hey, remember this? This is out there waiting for you. Go. And then I did leave my husband. I have my husband now, who's the greatest thing in the world, who's very gentle, the same kind of spirit like Grant has.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be like, oh, I married my husband because he reminds me of him. It's not that. But that gentle, kind.
Oh, so kind.
It's the same spirit that he has. And so now I'm married to that and I'm good. So I don't say I don't need my guardian anymore, but I really don't. And then one more thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up. But the last time I saw,
I'm so into it.
I don't want to be talking so much, but all this is so important for me to say.
I know everybody out there has been like, shoot, let me pause this and go get some popcorn, because that's the way I'm like, man, I wish I had some popcorn. I'm like, I'm all into it.
This planet is wild. You want to talk about ups and downs, man? My lifetimes here I've been through it.
Yes.
Good and bad, the highs of the good and the lows of the bad.
Absolutely.
But the last time my guardian came to me, I was really worried. And this could have been during 2020. I'm not sure. It was a time in my life where I was really worried about the future of the planet. And I was like, what is going to happen?
What year was this?
It could have been probably 2020 is what I'm thinking.
That's a big, yeah.
Because I was really worried about what was going on with the planet. Like, I'd never seen anything like this. I mean, when 9/11 happened, it kind of shut down the country, but not the whole world. This was the whole world it was affecting, and things were weird, and we'd lost all our jobs, and what was happening to the planet, and is this the end of the world, and is there going to be a World War III, and are we all going to die from this virus, or are we all being brainwashed by the government? So many questions. And so this will make you laugh. So I go to sleep. I have my vision. I'm in the desert. Okay, desert as far as the eye can see, left, right, everywhere, desert. And I'm walking by myself, and then here comes my guardian. 9 foot tall guardian comes out. And I was like, what do we do in the desert? And I said, because me and him are buddies, like we joke. And I said, oh, is Jim Morrison and a naked Indian going to walk up? Because from Wayne's World 2. And he was like, yeah, I don't know why I said that. I'm hilarious on the other side. But it's like, oh, is Jim Morrison, a naked Indian, going to walk up next? And he laughs and he's like, no, I want to show you this. I'm like, okay. So we walk up and there's these people and they kind of look almost steampunkish. Like, I don't know what time they're from. They have like a hard pith helmet, but they have other gadgets and like a cell phone. Like, I'm like, what? Are you from the 30s? Or are you from now? Like, I don't know what time is this? And they're like, look, we found something, and they're digging. And there's this big rock. Okay. And it's sticking out of the desert about this much, and it's smooth on top. And I mean, it's desert everywhere. And they're like, we found something. So they're digging, and they have these brushes, and they're brushing it off, and they're brushing it off. And then like he fast forwards it to where the sand gets lower and lower, and they're digging more, and they dig and dig and dig and dig. And next thing you know, there's like a face, like a head, like the head of a sculpture. And I'm like, oh my God, is this somewhere in like in Egypt or somewhere in Africa where they've like something's going to be discovered in the future, right? What is this? They dig more, start see shoulders, start see hands. They get down to the chest, and I realize it is Jesus with his arms out like this. Now, what statue looks like this? Okay? With his arms out. Christ the Redeemer, which is a huge statue on the top of a mountain in Brazil.
Yes, in São Paulo.
Have you seen those pictures?
Oh,
where
I've been there.
He's up here. Oh, gee. Okay. So you know how far he is to the valley. Okay. Him, mountain,
breathtaking.
people down here.
Yes.
All of that was covered in sand. This is way, I don't even know when in the future, way, way, way in the future. And he was like, the world is not going to end. He's like, it's going to change, but this world will never end. And he's like, here's a glimpse of the way, way future. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that statue's on top of a mountain in a tropical lush area. And you're talking about sand as far level sand as far as you can see. They don't even know what's under that statue. And I was like, and then that was the end of it.
Fascinating.
Right?
Yes, it's fascinating on so many like levels, especially the time period that was that you had that experience, because I really believe that 2020 was a choice point. I think it was a precipice. I think it was, I think, yes, things are going to continue on, and it always will, but it's like being shown like Earth changes in that way. Because that's, some of the, like Edgar Casey, like when his changes on Earth changes reading, he talks about, land rising, a lot, and that sort of thing. But I also think just the symbolism of like that your guardian chose that particular thing to be uncovered, because I'm just going to go there. I think in the last 4 years, because of the kind of collective trauma, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, just the collective trauma of everything, and seeing like the world that we once knew being, it's not like, oh, it was rainbows and butterflies before. It's not that, but there was a sense of, at least gratefully for us in the West, there was a sense of personal sovereignty, and like like just, I don't know. I mean, yeah, you always had like people that were judgmental, and you had all that, but never was there such repression of ideas and thoughts and speech. And, I mean, there was a campaign going on to keep everyone in a state of confusion and division, which is so the dark side at work.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had some of my most profound visions was during that time too, of 2020, like missions and all sorts of places I was going, and that time period, and also leading up to that. But I knew something was profound about that time, because there was a day where it's like, in Star Wars, like disturbance in the Force, right? It's like it was before anything had come down the pathway of like everybody knowing about COVID or whatever. It was before that. I just had this like the air was thick, and anyway, I remember just boo-hooing my head off in my prayer meditation room in there. It's not really like, I mean, it's a tiny space. Okay. I call it a room because I fit in there with all the things, and it's a little sacred space though. And I just was like, what is happening? Like I knew just in my gut, like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
And then I heard like, you knew you would be around for this. You always knew it.
Mm.
And that's when I knew, like, oh, God, let me go ahead and put on my armor. I knew, I was like, I'm in for, oh, man, this is what it's all been hinged on. It's like, it's starting now. And it's like everything kind of flooded. But that vision that your guardian of the threshold showed you, that particular thing, I believe is also symbolic in the sense of like, what is the one perfect energy that cannot be covered up? You know what I mean? Like, what is the unveiling of that? And I think the year that I think it's multifaceted, but like, I think that people now through that collective, it's like this birth pain, right? That everybody's had to go through of like, what is reality? I'm seeking the truth, damn it. And it's like, you have people that are just like black pilled forever.
Yeah.
And are just like, you know, why is anything? Blah. And then you have people who were just like going through life, like with blinders on, and then are now seeing for the first time.
Yeah.
You've had more people have visions, dreams, where they've had visions and dreams of their guardian angels or of Christ coming to them in dreams. I mean, there are millions of accounts. I see it all the time.
Yeah,
that
me
was
too.
Never the case.
Yeah.
That was not happening. Like, you'd have the peppered in, but people certainly didn't feel comfortable enough to talk about it. And now they are. And so I find all that so interesting. And I think it was a loving gesture of like, hey, you're feeling all this kind of weird vibe about like in 2020 when that happened. Like, I think almost like, I don't want to, hey, guardian guy, I'm not putting words in your mouth, okay? But it's like, even if the worst case scenario happened and this whole place got covered up in a cataclysmic kind of situation, you're still going to find, you know, like
the light.
It can't, that can't, the light cannot be, it's never over.
Yeah,
like this,
that's a great interpretation of that because that's not something I had thought of. So I love that.
I think that is so cool though. And gosh, and just because that statue, first of all, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And even the way that the face is sculpted, it's like nailed it. You know, I mean, like really just the energy off of that thing is just incredible. The way it's lit, you can see it for miles and miles and miles. Yeah. But it is it's up there. And then, I mean, that's a lot of earth for that to be covered.
Well, and I thought what would like maybe a pole shift or something, but then later, like just last year, I heard about how whale bones were discovered in the middle of the Sahara. Like they found like a whale skeleton in the middle of the Sahara. And like, I know that like around the Pyrenees used to be like lush and green and stuff because I've had visions of that too. But like, think about things changing, pole shifts changing, because that happens every 26,000 years or something. I don't know. But it's then like
our pole shift is actually happening right now.
Yes. Yeah. I did read about that. How the North Pole is actually like in Russia or something.
It's moved in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, several hundred miles.
Yeah. Because now the zodiacs are off, and I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff.
Everything's kind of on a weird tilt.
Yeah.
But I think it's supposed to happen that way.
With the poles moving, it also moved the equator. And that's why it's a lot hotter in the south because, like, you know, in Georgia, we used to get at least an inch or two every year of snow. I didn't see snow in, like, years, you know? And now you can have palm trees. Like, I rode, like, around Atlanta the other day, and there was, like, palm trees. And I'm like, you can't grow palm trees in Atlanta. Like, what's happening? So that's part of us heating up, too. So, anyway, that's a long thing. But, so I don't want to get too off of it, but that's my guardian story. So I'm interested to hear about yours.
Fascinating. And it's so cool to, like, mine are very different, but as they should be, because it's me and not you. And, you know, but it's, that just yours is, I love hearing that of like just the, like why those things were, you know, why those were chosen specifically for you, you know. And I'm sure everyone out there watching this is like, you would not think that this person that's right here sitting here, Jamie, that you would not, you're like, this girl's letting people walk all over, like.
I know.
right?
I think of that all the time. I'm like, am I still the same person? Because I was so meek and little and like mousy, and now anyone who's met me past 2017 is like, I don't want to mess with her.
Mm.
I've toughened up a lot, but I had to, and that's what they were showing me. Like, if you don't get off this path and find your balls, then something bad's going to happen to you. And then you're going to have to come
Yeah.
back in your next lifetime. So you might as well rip the Band-Aid off and do it now. And it sucked. Leaving him and getting divorced was a nightmare. But
Yeah. But it's like you had to have like a condensed, because it's like we're in the, as you know, Edgar Casey says, there was the time, and then there was a half time, and now there's the time and a half. Everything's really accelerated.
yeah.
And I think like our timeline is accelerated. Everything's moving like this so fast. And it's like you had a condensed version of those experiences in a weird way, like with your ex, because it's like, a magnetic personality and this whole thing, but you're like, okay, I'm going along with this. I don't really agree with this. And then like you were literally, you were metaphorically, symbolically trapped in a box, right?
Mm,
A construct,
yeah.
and you're suffocating,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, exactly.
Like you're going to freaking die in there, dude. And nobody's going to
Mm,
know who the hell you were, Like
wow.
people got to know who you are. And they don't need to. And so I think that's it's a fascinating thing. And I'll relay at least one of my stories, which this is the one I will say bits and pieces of, because I feel like it helps people to hear it, but I never get into it in the way that I'm about to get into it. I was actually going to see if I even had it up in this thing. No. Okay. I think it's like actually in my files on my phone, because I have it documented. But so one of the guardian threshold experiences. Well, let's get in, because they all, like the ones that had the most significance. The first one that had the most significance, let's get into that one, was I was in what looked like it looked like those houses that are built into the rock, like, into sandstone, into rock, Pueblo, whatever. But like, okay, essentially it's where, and I didn't know this at the time, obviously, but it's where the Anasazi were, okay, and which is in that Four Corners region of, it's a sacred area for Native Americans. That's where, you've got all of the main council of tribes are located there now, from the Zuni, the Navajo, to whatever. Okay. Very odd place, lots of paranormal stuff that goes on there. But if you've ever seen any documentaries or pictures of the Anasazi area, it is quite weird. There's intricate houses or whatever built up into the stone, rooms and rooms. It's all like this, and it goes like underground, and there's these circular things. And also there's the whole thing of no one actually knows in the academic world, knows what happened to the Anasazi.
Right, yeah.
They just disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I had heard that they had built that for a place to live during the Ice Age or something, but then they didn't know where they went after that or something like that.
I mean, there's a lot of scholars that theorize a lot of things. And then you only have to look an inch deep into the kind of work of like Edgar Casey and some of those, kind of turn of the century people that really go in great detail about, what was really going on there. But of course I didn't know any of that at the time. So I was like, there were native peoples, like, smaller in stature, brown, people. And they were all up in this, like living in that area. It was like flourishing community. You know, there was even some greenery down at the thing, and I'm walking through, and then I would see faces that would come out of out of their homes and and do that, and were looking at me. And I was with two other people, okay, that were walking through this area too. And of course I'm being very kind, and I'm like, doing like this, and it's just like faces, faces, faces. But I was trying to not draw too much attention to myself, but I'm also being shown this, okay? Like, so I have like a being somehow back here that is like making me go through the eyes of myself, right?
Okay.
In this experience. But I'm also like, I seem like I'm like super tall, right? And I feel different. Like my body feels, I feel different. I don't even want to, I feel like I'm kind of just gliding, like I'm not really even walking, but like there's something off about like, so I'm trying to like look down at my feet, or whatever. And I kind of just see like, just like, I don't know, like flowy air. It's like, it looks like it formed thing, but it's not really fully formed. But
yeah.
But like the people on the outside, like they think it's fully formed.
Okay.
Like, yeah. Like, but I'm looking and I'm like, okay, even in that, I felt dense. Like, I was like, oh, like it was uncomfortable to be there really, but I was there, I was trying to do something. And I should say this, at the time period in which I had this experience, one of the big things I was kind of grappling with was, like, what is my significance? Like, of like, okay, because this is after I'd had my huge missing time experience, right?
Okay.
Like, so that I thought was the turnover, was the big, like if I had known what the Guardian of the Threshold was at that time, I would have totally thought that that was that, right?
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, so I'm seeing like, I've got questions in my real life now at that time, which was like, what is the next thing? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, and I had gone through a chapter of my life that was very, very confusing. Definitely not ready to spill the beans on all that right now. That we don't have that kind of time. But it was in a very, very confusing time of my life, which then led me into being on Ringling in the circus. Okay. Which was kind of like me finding joy again in a weird way. So I kind of like ran away with the circus. But then after that, I just kind of didn't know. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I didn't know, like, am I just drifting? Is this like, I knew I had something to do because I've always known that. But then I'm like, I just don't. So anyway, so that's kind of the mental state. It was a change. Like it was a point of like, I'm about to change.
Yeah.
Like something big is about to change. And I don't know who I am. Who am I? Like, I know I've been told that I can't remember everything. They told me I couldn't remember it all.
Yeah.
All this stuff. So anyway, so I'm having this experience, and this being is like it's like you talked about, you're going into your body, seeing through that, and then you're going out, and then you're going, it's, so you're seeing both things. So I'm like really getting like a good bird's eye view of like the area, and I'm like, this place is really weird. But there was a feeling in the air of dread, and like something was going down, like there was something dark that was like something that I knew was about that. The people that these natives that were there, just, they had like on a gut level, they knew something was off, you know, and they had certain rituals and stuff to where they would try to ask for divine help in the way that they knew how, you know, and so I was walking through this corridor. I mean, I could still see it. And again, they're like excited to see me. And I'm like, you know, kind of like doing this and whatever, but I'm not associating with them. I'm not talking to them or anything. And I'm just like walking on this path, like going forward. And then I feel this, like I'm being lifted up, right? Now, the two people that I'm with, okay, and I think it was similar to your situation where you saw like your dad and then your stepmom, but it's not really them. It's like,
yeah,
this is the nature of the, yeah. So at the time it was my, the guy that I was with, which you know, and then it was my brother. But so there was a relationship that I had. I think it was just about seeing the relationship there of like these two that were with me, like we were that, like the closeness in relationship was there. Like this is like my brother, or like something like that kind of level of closeness. And this is someone that I'm working with that I have grown close to. Okay. And they were like me. They were kind of like, they were in form, but not, we were different from everyone else. Okay.
Okay.
So the one that was like my brother, that whatever, he like somehow like got lost or like went off on some other thing. And I turned to him and I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Don't you understand the severity of this? We have to do this. Like I was begging. I was like, this is no time to be going off and looking at things and gallivanting and like exploring this place and this world. Like we are here for a very specific thing. I cannot do this without you with me. And I'm damn sure not going to leave you behind, you know?" And there was just like this kind of flippant attitude that they both had about like what was going on. But I knew it was like a serious thing. And the other one was kind of like was there, but just also was like not really fully engaged. I mean, they kind of felt like we're untouchable though. I mean, really, but I knew better. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I knew better. It's like they were taking whatever that we were for granted in a weird way. And more curious about the earth than anything else, or about the surroundings of where we were at than what we were there to do, which at that point I didn't know. Anyway, at one point though, after they were gone, it was just me. I was like jerked up and I was like, and then I'm like, what? And I'm flying, like soaring, like way above like this. And I look up and I'm tethered with an actual tether, like a rope that's connected to me. And up above, there's this giant eagle and I'm tethered to him.
Wow.
And then he looks down at me and he goes like that. Okay. Like, I got you. Like you're tethered.
My God.
Now I kept thinking I'm soaring over, like, you know, there's the trees and there's like all this stuff and like high mountain, like cliffs and razor sharp edges and stuff. And I'm like, and I'm thinking of the rope getting caught, like on all these things, you know? And then I'm like, you know, and then he's looking at me like trying to say like, we are one. So what you're seeing, and so it was like this, like,
like okay, you're flying together.
Yes. And then I felt something like pulling down here. And then I looked down and I'm also tethered to this unbelievable, beautiful horse that is down there running in tandem. So there's the three of us.
Wow.
It was very Native American, like symbology.
Yeah.
And the horse had it was black, but it had like its feet, which I think this is symbolic. Its feet were white. So it's like, it was like light running, but the rest of it, and it was gorgeous. And then the horse would look up at me, like in the middle, and it was like, no, I'm keeping up with you too, and we were just like going around, and I could, like right now, if you could see my arm, was just there. And it was the most breathtaking thing. And I was like, and then the horse went like this and shook loose the tether from him.
Okay.
So I'm just now at this point tethered with the eagle, but the eagle is not the eagle, as we know. The eagle is a guardian.
Yeah.
And so then I'm looking down and I see this circle of cloaked, like really bad figures that are there. And they are there. They are trying to disrupt the energy field of this sacred place. Like, they are there to ruin what is going on, because apparently this area people were portaling in and out, like at will, like, it was a very sacred area to these people. It was a knowledge center of like higher, like when they're talking about the star beings, like that's what this place was. And they were coming in and out, and the people knew, and they would get like excited, like, oh, cool, it's Star Being Day or whatever, like there's one of our friends. I mean, it was just like a normal thing for them. And there was this other faction that was there to completely erode the evolution of this group and this like whole thing. Like, I mean, going against natural law itself. Okay. And I got all that, like just from seeing them from this tether. And then I got dropped down to where I was like dropped on the horse. Right. And then I'm pulling the horse like this, and I get off, and I don't have my counterparts with me. So it's just me that has to face off, literally using like energetics to like keep them back. Like, so I had to like do something, I don't know, like energetically to like push and hold like basically a bubble around this whole group of people. And then when it became too much to bear, then these people like just like phased out to where like there was no remnant of like their energy signature or anything. And so the other group like could not even perceive where they were. Now, wow. Think about that with the Anasazi and like just nobody knows.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that at the time.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, what the hell why was I shown that?
Yeah.
Like, what was that? I'm like, what was I? And then like this eagle, like at the point where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it's just me. Like, and then I realized, oh, I'm still tethered to that, to in Native American world, the Great Spirit.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, the Great Spirit, yeah.
Yes. So he took the form of that to like let me know, like, oh no, like at no point is it all you that's doing anything.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a lesson of like, I think that was a past thing that actually happened. I also think that it was something that I needed to hear at that exact time, which is like this unsurety and this like, I don't know what I'm doing and where am I. And like, I really have kind of always felt like I gotta just like do this by myself, like it's just me. I think that's even down to being like orphanage kid, initially.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And just like I got to rely on me, my wits, my blah, and my go-to and out to, and I'm going to re-roof the house. I'm going to learn how to do it. Because it's like dependence on any help was not an option, you know, like, and so that was like, I woke up from that just sobbing. Because I know I'm not doing a great job of explaining that feeling, but if the feeling was just like, you've never been without this tether.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And it was so humbling and so and then I went and off on a whole thing. And then ironically enough, like there was this artisan that I had met, whatever, like, and I was sent like an actual legit honest Aussie artifact right after that.
Wow.
Like it's got the timestamp and everything. It's like, 30,000 years old. I mean, it's like between this amount and this amount of time, it's like, I mean, I could show it to you. It's crazy.
Wow.
And yeah. And it's just a weird thing. So there was that one. The second one that was major was, in which I knew it was that, and this one I'll be brief. This was looked like a just desolate desert, like Gaza, like that kind of look to it. Like in areas of Israel, it looks like that. Like, Nazareth looks like that. Okay. Looks exactly like that. Like where it's just like dirt. And then, and some of the old streets are like dirt. And then there's like these villas or whatever that are on the side and whatever. And it's, there's certain areas of like in Palestine or whatever that have that feel, because you can go like right, like 20 miles up the road and it's like, there's a Macy's, you know what I mean? Like it's crazy,
yeah,
like crazy dichotomy there. So again, a weird time period, but I was like going through something at that time. It was pretty major. And this was several years after that initial one. And just a lot of questions. So this would have been in 2016, I think. This one, yeah. I'll have to look. So it was like right around Thanksgiving, something like that, yeah. And anyhow, I was in this. I got plunked again. I'm plunked in this weird village, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm seeing like there's like this like kind of deformed, like really evil, like presence of like a girl. She's sitting over in the corner, and she's like, like doing like that. And she's like dirty and just deformed and like it's all dark. And then all of a sudden I look up and there's like a sea of crows. I mean, like, and they're all coming from like the sun is setting, and I have a painting of this too. I did, but the sun is setting, so it's orange. It's got that orange thing. So this is facing west. So it's like the West Bank of Israel. It's that kind of thing, which I've been there. So I have an idea of that whole thing. And it's like orange into pinks and all that. And then it's kind of like, those colors enhance that red rock and all that stone. So it's very eerie, like kind of how Morocco looks. It's very like that. And ancient place. And again, there's like some beings that are like, they're people, but they're like, there's other stuff that's like taking them over. Right. And, they've got like this on and they're like, and they're like ducked in the corner, and these crows come in and they're like, I mean, so like deafeningly loud. And I'm like dropping to on my gut, like what the, and I'm like, oh my God, where is it? And I was absolutely scared to death. And the kind of experiences I've had, for me to be scared to death, like in any of these, it was like, wait, what? I'm not even seeing like anything crazy. It's just birds, but I knew they were heralding something. Like it was not just birds. It was like they were messengers, and there were millions of them, and they were all, it just blacked out the whole sky of like crows. And then they would come like right over my head like this. And I'd be like, and I was doing like this. I'm like, what is going on? I was like freaking out, like, what's going on? Where am I? I don't want to be here. You know, completely crying. And then there's like those people that are all contorted, twisted. They're like demons. And they're like crawling towards me.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. Yeah. Like, and they're like, you know, like making grunting sounds and growling. And the crows are everywhere. And I'm like, you know, and sweating and like crying and like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. And then it's like I started to hear the crows kind of like fade, like they're getting, wow, are they going away? Are they whatever? And I feel this, okay, like just, I mean, like thud. All right. And I'm like, what? And I look up like this and I'm like, what am I looking at? Oh my God. And I'm like, oh, look, like, I mean, just, it was like slow motion. Look, I'm looking all the way up and there's like a 2-story tall eagle, just 2 stories tall. And he's like, I have a painting I did of this. It's so cool. And he's going like this. And I kept like averting my eyes. And every time I would look down, it's like if this is an eagle beak, okay, and you're like averting your eyes, he would go. And he was like doing this.
Yeah.
Whatever. And he's trying to like lock in with me.
Oh my God.
Like, and then like when I was doing this, his face goes up, like up under, you know how their beaks are like, it's so sharp. And then I'm looking at talons that could just like rip a building in half. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
Yeah. And right now I'm like sweating. Oh my God. Like I could, I mean, just like, and then he gets like this and his head, I mean, it's, I can't even, it's right there. And then I go, okay. And he goes, and we both did this at each other at the same time, like exactly how my eyes look is exactly how his, and and it's not a bald eagle. So those of you envisioning that, and I'm not even technically sure. I call it an eagle. It might be a hawk because it was brown. It was brown. And I always thought like it's a golden eagle because in my mind, it's like it was so massive. It has to be, you know, whatever. And the eyes, and it goes like this. And I lock eyes. Okay. And then it's funny. Like, I mean, I was like, you know, it telepathically linked with me. And he goes, there you are. Like right when we locked eyes, he goes, there you are. Oh man, you made that so hard on me. And then I go, uh-huh. Like I'm just like, like looking up at this thing. And I mean, it's so, can you imagine it being like, imagine you're a mouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a bird of prey that's like, you're like, well, I'm dead. I mean, like, you know, like there's no hope for me, you know? And this thing can see like miles. Sees an infrared, like I'm gone. So anyway, so he's like, there you are, you know. And he goes, man, you made that really, really hard for me. And I was like, well, sorry about that. And I'm like, oh. And then every time I would divert my eyes, he'd go like that. Like he would snake in and get me again. And he goes, don't lose the lock. Like the locking in. And I go, okay. And he goes, okay. Hey, it's going to be okay. Like this. And I'm like, And he goes, you've always been tethered to me. And I was like, oh my God, it's the eagle. It's the one that I was tethered to.
Aww.
And then, and he goes, and he called all of the crows. He said, they're harbingers. That's what he called them. And he said, he's like, my harbingers always come before I do.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, like to clear the area or something?
And I go, I mean, I was like in my head, like rad, but like, wow, though, like, what? It's just me, you know. And then he looks and he goes, he's like, you'll remember everything. You will remember everything. Don't be afraid of the harbingers. And I was like, okay. And he's like, don't be afraid of me. Like all this stuff, like, don't be afraid of the harbingers. You've always been tethered to me. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. All right then. Like I'm just like, and then at that moment he like looks up and he goes, like, he like sent just this love, right? Just like through the eyes. And he was funny. And then he's like, so tricky. He's like, called me tricky. And he's like, you're so tricky. He said, you're so unsure. You're so unsure. He goes, it's so funny. Like that. And he was like making fun of me for being like weird about my life. Where am I going? What am I doing? It was like, oh, you idiot. Like, you're, come on. And so that one, I was like, and then when he took off, oh my gosh, when he took off, he went like this, and then all the crows went, whoom, and then they went in the direction of the sun.
Oh my God.
And he went like this, it lifted up. And then as he was like, I mean, the wingspan was like the Empire State Building. It was so massive. And he went the wings fully out, and the wind was like it was like throwing rocks at like my face and everything. And then he gets up, look to a certain thing, like a certain altitude, and he looks down and he winks like that. And then he was like, boom. And then I woke up and I went, I was so sad. I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want to be away from it. I didn't want, and I also was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And I thought about it so hard, and I was like, I need to look up, like, what was this? And why? And like this desolate place, and I was in this desolate place. The other thing about me was I was completely naked.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, yeah, so it was so vulnerable, right?
Right.
This vulnerable place, and like this crazy, there's like these weird contorted people that are like got gin on them or demons or something. They're like crawling towards me, and there's freaking crows, and and I'm like nude, stick out like a sore thumb, in this area.
Yeah.
And I'm just like out there in the town center, completely nude.
Wow.
And I have thought about that for so long. And when that happened, and what was the significance of it, and just how much doubt I had about everything, and so much, like, there was so much going on and change, and I was really, really struggling at that time to understand placement. Where's my placement?
Yeah.
I had a lot of opportunities. I was producing kids television shows. I just got that gig. I was also had been made the creative director for the show on Home and Garden Network. So I had so much work. And yet I'm like, what is going on? Like, why am I so torn about, like, I should be happy right now.
Yeah.
And yet I feel completely alone.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't know, I'm on an island by myself, and I was so unsure of everything. So that was one. And the last one, which I'll say this, the last one's the coolest. I mean, the eagle's pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And I say eagle. I'll show you my painting. I think you'd be like, girl, that's a hawk.
If it's a hawk, I will lose my mind.
It's brown. It's brown. It has golden eyes. And yeah, I mean,
you need to ask in the meditation room and get a clear answer.
Yeah, I will. I have asked about the hawk, and I know that that's like a thing. So, yeah.
But then, like, the Native American in me is like the Great Spirit Eagle. Like, it was probably that. I don't know.
I mean, it fit with the territory.
Yeah.
They're just majestic anyway. I mean, I'm just obsessed with, like, I've always been drawn to anything like Native American, as far as like I love buffalo. I love all that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my, there's something so, I've always been just like, I've adored Native American stories, and like all of their fun, like their children's stories are amazing. I love it. You know, like how Coyote got his voice, and like all those, like, oh, they're so magical and cool. But anyway, so the last one is really, really something. I had not been able to shake a tremendous amount of regret and guilt, which are two terrible things to hold on to.
Yeah.
Again, this goes back to the first experience, because what I had just gone through in about a 3 or 4 year period before I joined Ringling was so confusing, so totally out of my league. And I was like, how did I get there? How did I get surrounded by these people? And then how lucky I was to have somehow managed to break out of that, because nobody breaks out of that.
Yeah.
And this involves some very, very, very elite people. Like names that if I said, everybody on here would be like, bullshit. You know, they go, no, everybody, what are you, a whistleblower? You know, and it's like, no, I really know the real stuff. Like, I really do, though. Like, and how I got there, why I got there, and it made me question my reality entirely.
Oh, wow.
Of like, me? Like, how did I end up in this circle of these people who are just rumored in the, peppered in the, and even at that time, I had no idea about some of these things. I just had heard a few of the names in association with certain fortunes, we'll say. And then I was like, yeah, whatever, people are people. Because you know how like entertainers are. You run into famous people and you're like, like you're just a person like I am. I know you pee and poop. Like that's the way I think about it. It's like, whatever. And I've always had crazy things happen in my life. So it was like, well, this one takes the taco. But it did, on a positive note, it did allow me to see the world. And I'm trying to make this story quick, but
no, good.
Okay. So the result of some decisions that were made by me during that time period, and then the reaction I had to living in that time, living those 3 years, and what my reaction to that was, and how rebellious I became about like life in general, and like hence joining the circus and being like, screw it, seize the day, man. Because it was like I had a new lease on life. This is what's going to go down, And throwing absolute caution to the wind, which is antithetical to who I am. I am calculating to a annoying level, like I am telling these stories. So anyhow, I still couldn't even though I changed I felt like I was changing my life. I was starting to become more like higher consciousness centered. Like I'm like, yes, I'm back to basics. This is who I am. I know this is who I am. It's always been who I am. I'm getting there again. Right. And I finally had the money to where I wasn't like chasing, like, I had too much money at the time. What am I going to do with all this? Like, so I was really like utilizing it in a way that was, cool. Like I was taking classes at the ARE and I was doing, like cool stuff, but, I would still go to bed and this like stuff would grip my mind. These like embarrassed, like where it's just shame and just like, and it's like, well, and then I would try to have compassion for myself and try to not think of myself as like always being like in control. And like, hey, remember, Mel, I know it's hard for you to fathom that you're a human being, because that's always been a thing where it's like, I don't have any excuses because I've always been super aware. So it's like, like, well, I knew better, you know? Yeah, I did, but I still acted on something because like I still feel, and I still had a reaction that is very human, and it was very much, I don't know if it was needed or not, but anyway. So there was one day where I was just, and it was like, it was about right when I was like, I think, I don't know, it was 27, was it 2017? Yes, I think so. Yes, it was. Yes, it was 2017. And so you're on that, for me, I'll just give my age away. Who cares? So I was born in 1978. So there's a whole thing about when you turn 40, like in the world of initiation or whatever. So I was like right at that sweet spot where, and so like I was 30. Yeah, I was 39, I believe. Yeah. And, and so I had this, had tremendous guilt. I was like going to bed and whatever. And, I just felt horrible about some stuff that I'd done, and just like how I felt like I had abused my natural ability, like my natural charm and ability to, I hate to even use the word, but I'm going to just be real, manipulate situations. I manipulated the crap out of several situations to my advantage, which I'm shamefully good at. And I had done that so that I could get out unscathed. Okay. And at any cost, like, I'm going to make it out of what's going on, what I discovered is happening in this little clip, this world. This is not going to go on. And no. And so I still had a lot of shame about my reaction to that. So I'm going to bed, and all those, monsters of shame and guilt and regret, and like, you knew better, what were you thinking, and you probably set yourself back, and freaking, just like bleh, like griping myself out. Bam, I'm inside of like what seems like a cave or a mountain. Okay, like I'm inside of this crap.
Okay.
And I'm like, whoa, and you can hear like a whoa. I mean, it's like hollow. I can hear the voices of certain family members. The guy I was with, who, I can hear him somewhere. And then I look down, and then the floor that I'm standing on is starting to shift. I'm like, and like that, where the rocks are going,
Oh, God.
I'm like, and so, and it's really disorienting. And I'm like, step, like doing one of those, like step, and then like step, and then it turned to sand. And then it was like sand.
Oh my
right?
God.
And then it's like coming down like a mudslide, sand. And I'm like, oh God. And I slide, step. And then I get up on another one, and then shifting, and then gears and shifting and gear, like unbelievable. Like, and I'm going step, and I'm all over the place. I'm like, ding, 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 just trying to not die.
Wow.
Okay. And I keep hearing voices of people I know. Hey, Melody, where are you? I gotta find where. And then they started to fade off, and I'm like,
my God.
And so, and I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know how I'm going to be able to tell them how to navigate this path. Okay. They'll never be able to find me. How do I tell them, like, oh, this is going to turn to sand. You got to step on that block over there. And I wasn't even paying attention. And, I was like, I should go back and look at it. And then I would turn back like this, and it was water, just tidal wave coming at me. And then I would duck under that. And the tidal wave would go over my head, and I would reach, and there would be like a rock that was shaped like a hook. I'd grab that, and it would pull me up, and then I'd step somewhere else, and it was shifting, turning, whatever. Mud, water, air. Then it was like a cliff. And then and it's like all like, what's an illusion, what's not. And I still like, I'm fading away. And I'm like, well, where's this going to go? Because all I could see was a rock face, just rock. Like, and I'm like, there's nowhere this doesn't go anywhere. And so I'm like stepping, just trying not to die, because it keeps shifting. And like, I mean, the most intricate patterns are shifting. Like it turned into this and that and that. And somehow my foot would always end up at the right spot. And then I'm like, okay. And I get up I'm like, I'm almost at the wall. And I'm like, there's no way anybody's ever going to find me. And I'm trapped, and it's going to be and I get up to this cliff face, and then I'm like that. And I'm like, and then everything behind me. So it's just nothing. Right. And just my tippy toes are right here on the edge of a cliff like this, like where it's just, I'm in the cave still, but I'm like this. And then the whole cliff, like where I'm at, just goes open. And I fell down like this, and I could sense that there was light, like a lot of light. And I was like, I died. I had to have died. And, and I'm like, and the cliff opened up, and it was a doorway. It looked like this, like where I was standing like this. And then it just turned into like a doorway to another dimension. I got up, and there was another cliff's edge, and I looked out like this, and it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen in my life. Like, and then I could hear this, I heard like Shambhala. Like, this is like Shangri-La.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shambhala. And I'm looking, and I go, huh? And it was like, whoa, right? Like, it's so stunningly beautiful. And I'm looking out over it, and my feet, I'm naked again, but this time I don't look like a person. I'm just like a figure that's like I'd see it's me. And I have a painting of this as well from seeing it from the back. But like, I'm just standing there, like, and there's a cliff, and then I feel that massive presence behind me again. He says, never judge the intricacies of the steps you took to get right here.
Oh.
Uh-huh. And I went, okay. And he goes, you are here now. This is where you're at now. And I went, okay. And he says, the razor's edge. And it's like the razor's edge. Like back there, there's no navigating that backwards. There's nothing left back there. You're here now. And this is where you're at. The razor's edge. Out there, this is Shambhala. You can't stay in this crap forever.
Yeah.
You got to go out there.
Okay.
You have to go into the place of enlightenment, the place of, like, that's where you've got to go. And you cannot, never judge the intricacies of the steps you took to get right here. And that just all of a sudden, after that experience, the death of the ego, of thinking I could control anything, or thinking that somehow my bad, poor choices and everything was just like the end of the world for me. And I just like, I'm just holding on to that guilt and resentment and just regret and all that real negative, low vibratory crap that was like completely eating me away on the inside.
Yeah.
It wasn't there right after that. It just wasn't there. And I went, okay. And that experience was a death. That was a death of ego. That was a death of like you're a new, it was like being baptized. It was like, you are a new person. Like the next morning, like you're new now. This is where you're at. And it was very different feeling from any of the other experiences I had prior to that. including my giant epic one where I was missing time. Like this was, that was on another level. But this was like, it was rebirth. And it
Wow.
like who's sitting here talking to you today is because of that.
Yeah.
It's because of that experience and how absolutely terrifying it was. It was all of my nightmares into one, which is like not being able to save anyone else. I couldn't save any of my family or tell them how to get where they needed to go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, you can't.
Right.
Their steps are just as intricate.
Yeah.
That's theirs. Like you can't, you're not in, who do you think you are? You're not in control of that.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, so it was amazing. And I think I took a long time to tell those, but it's those are so tailor-made for my brain.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
they were important and very interesting and very scary. I mean, there's so many parts of all of those stories. You know, like you said, you were like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to be here. Where am I going? So much like waking life.
Yeah. And then there's the other weird thread that's in there that's similar to yours is like, I noticed that always with the male that I was with, that he always ended up doing something else and was fading away. Okay. And like was not along for that journey ever, which at the time like really hurt me, you know, because I was like, well, you know, and he would have these apocalyptic dreams regularly. And he's like, you know what? Like these crazy nightmares I have that are like apocalyptic. He goes, you always leave me.
Whoa.
He said, you always leave me. You always abandon me. And I know the people out there don't know what happened to me, but yeah, me and that guy are not together anymore. It's a very crazy story, which I'm not going to get into, but it's some haunting, chilling things. It's like, no, you know, you have to go on. Nobody is going to go on the journey with you because it is such an individual experience.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you can't have a family or that you're whatever, but it's like, because obviously you can. Any kind of positive environment is great, but it just means that, like, you know, that your growth spiritually is your own. You know what I mean? Like your growth spiritually is your own.
Yeah.
No one else can do it for you or come with you and like, you know, whatever. Like you have to make that leap by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody does. And so everybody has to come to it. Like your experiences are completely, dude, like when you set them in order like that, I was like, got it. Like like seeing them all like that, the way you detailed out yours, it's like, oh God. And so horrifying. But like, also just like, okay, like now I get it. Like when the way you did them, like bump, 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 bump. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, because halfway through that, I'm like, oh, she had to stand up for herself. She had to stand up for herself. That's what this was. And she had to also remember what it felt like to be respected at the same time. Yeah. Oh, it's so
I
deep.
didn't get any of that at the time. At the time, I'm like, what the hell was all that back there? Like, I wake up and I'm like, what? I was mad. You know, I'm like, why didn't you show me this? It takes, sometimes you have to get totally out of the situation years later and then look back and you're like, for myself, it's easy to look at someone else and go, oh yeah, ABC. Yeah, I get it. But when it's happening to you, you're so confused, you know, or like when the crows and everything were at you, that was part of you. Like you and that bird, whatever, the spirit or the eagle or the hawk are one, and that's your entourage. But you're so forgetful, for one, because you had to be wiped clean to get here. And then you're terrified because you're like, you forgot. And so when he looked at you and was like, there you are, you know, imagine he's like step out
It
of
was
it.
exactly that. The way you just did that bam.
Yeah.
It was exactly that. Like, there you are. I mean, it was so just, oh, it was funny. And also that crazy telepathic thing where it was like, you know, like you're in my head, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was exactly
and I wonder
that.
too, like, so you remember when we had talked about um our lives, and we've talked about like being volunteers, and we're going to do a whole episode on Dolores Cannon and the three waves of volunteers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain volunteers that come here, and some of them have past lives on Earth, and some of them don't, or they have impressions or whatever. And how you had seen, or you had already gotten this in the meditation room, because I had told you, I said, I feel like I'm a volunteer, but I know I had past lives here. And then you had went into the meditation room and asked about it, and I have been here several times with lives, but this is your first time in this flesh. That really coincides with like what you've been seeing, because like you said, you looked down and you looked, wavy, or like you weren't, and then the people
Mm-hmm.
looking out at you, like maybe you were the star being, maybe you came through that portal, maybe you're trying to protect that portal, and
And
anything else. I
it
mean, that
also
I
felt
feel like,
like sorry.
as I said, I feel
Go
like
ahead.
what I said and what you said kind of coincides with that. Like
Yeah,
you've had past
my voice is
life,
about to change because
past.
my phone's dying. So hang on.
I had to plug mine in too.
Okay, sorry, people. Okay, go ahead.
You've had past experiences. I don't know if it seems like like even on the
Like
other
that.
side. Yeah.
Like what I've got is that I was intricately involved. Right? Can you hear me?
Yeah. You sound the
Okay.
exact same.
So freaking infuriating, dude. Okay, so yeah, it's like I was intricately involved um, with Earth from the beginning, but not like I wasn't in I wasn't in a like what you consider a human. I didn't go through the birth experience or anything like that. You know, like, and I knew that like birth in general is so foreign to me. You know, like just people giving birth. Like
Really?
when yeah, no, when I was little, I was like, I mean, fully like, oh God, I'm a girl. Like, because I knew that they gave birth. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, no. And I wanted zero. And I'm so, thank you. Thank you. That's not one of the things that's on the list. Thank you. Because I always thought like I'm going to have to face that.
Yeah.
And I haven't, so thank God. And I'm not disparaging anybody. It's my own thing.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not ready. It's going to take a few more goes at this before I'm ready for something like that.
Yeah.
And you know, because I can't. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like I've like sat and watched videos like how is it how does it even happen? It's amazing. Like I have so much respect for it that I'm like, you know, but I just it's foreign.
Yeah.
And my family always looked at me like, you know, and my mom to this very day is like, you know what? She's, by the way, if I ever do an accent on here that's her, just know like I'm not like culturally appropriating anybody. This is what she actually sounds like
Accurate.
because it's accurate.
Uh,
Okay, it like Cajun-y, you know, like you can barely understand. It's that. So she's like, you always said you never gonna have no baby. And here it is all these years later, and you say that? I thought you was playing. And I was like, no. And she's like, how you know you not gonna do that? I said, I just knew. But that's weird. I'm like,
Well, I've heard Dolores Cannon say that the volunteers, most of them are like 99% of them do not have kids, because if they do, that creates karma, and you cannot have karma
well,
because
the
you weren't meant
ones,
to stay here over and over again. You're just here to pop in and probably leave. So,
well, it's like the ones that are new, right?
right,
Like that are new in this,
it's their first life. Yeah.
yeah, first, like in this incarnate, yeah, in a flesh sack. which is an amazing thing. Like, I'm not disparaging that at all, but it's a, like, it's fascinating though. But like the advanced souls that are here, like you, I believe, I mean, I know that to be true. And, you think about Edgar Casey, like how many times he was here in a body and the mistakes that were, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
he intricately connected to this planet in so many ways.
Yeah.
And, had really high status, like, in his readings of, as Ra-Ta in Egypt, which we get into another thing, fascinating stuff on Atlantis too. I mean, before his being Edgar Casey, one of the readings that came forth and one of his deals was he was this gambler, drunk in the shoot 'em up West, wild, wild West, and still had that leftover soul imprint of being psychic,
Yeah.
but would use it to cheat at card games to get money for, like, women and booze.
Yeah.
You think about that, it's like, what? Like, he did all these crazy awesome things before, and these other lives, like, why you look like you dropped the ball in that one. But one of the reasons why they said that had to happen that way is because if he was going to be in this incarnation as Edgar Casey and be in that time period that he was in and have all of those a-hole banksters and oil tycoons that were trying to take advantage of him and scam, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
He had to be able to recognize that on some level.
Right.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. It's so cool. It's so cool. Everything's so cool about that. About just like, that's what I mean. Like when I had my big epic thing and I was like, nobody understands like the level of thought that is put into these souls and like how it all fits together. And it's so mind blowing. Like nothing is an accident.
Yeah.
It all works out. Like there's really no failure, not
Right.
really, not in the big view of it.
Yeah, because it's all experiences. And it kind of ties back to what you said earlier about Charles Dickens, from him being in a well-to-do family to being dirt poor and then being back, having money again, but having, because if he had that experience, then he was a spokesman for the poor people and being like, you don't think about it when you and your family are well off because you're not thinking about it. But I've been there, I've done it, and then I came back. So he had to have that experience for understanding, just like I've had to have all my bull crap experiences for understanding, and so did you, and so did Edgar Casey, and so did every human on this planet. And even the people, even the people that we don't understand, that meow at you, and even those people, okay, even those people are having their experience right now, and maybe next lifetime they'll come around, or the next one, and they're gonna look back and be like, I had this weird vision that I was this kind of person. What the hell, So when you see people that you're just are awful or doing bad, that's their lifetime on here. I mean, I'm not not giving excuses, but I'm just saying.
No,
We're all gonna have.
Face. Yes.
We're all gonna have that redemption, and so we have to. I don't know. It's kind of like, again, the guy who shot that guy in New York City. Like, we can't, like, even the worst person that's here, you just have to let them have their experience and hope that eventually they have their come to Jesus moment, because you never know.
Agreed.
I mean, you never look at Paul, the apostle.
Oh, I reference him all the time.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, he killed Christians. That was his job. And I mean, if he killed thousands of people, even if he could turn around, then there's hope for anyone on this planet, no matter how much you hate them. And that's hard for me to say, because there's a couple people on this planet that I absolutely wish that a meteor would just land on their face and take them out. That's specifically how I want them to leave, is to get hit with a meteor.
Like where they're like, what's that? Bam.
Yeah, that's how I've imagined them leaving the planet several times. But at the end of the day, it's their experience and the people they're hurting, just like my ex or whoever had hurt me in the past. I had to have that to finally get up, pull myself up by the bootstraps, say no, and get out of that. And I have someone very close to me who's in a worse relationship than what I was in. And I tell her, she's like, help me, what am I going to do? And I'm like, you've been there for 20 years. Only you can do it. I tell her, like, only you can prevent forest fires, Smokey. I was like, yeah,
I used to say that all the time. I love
yeah.
it.
I tell that to her, I'm like, I can't come rescue you. You have to rescue yourself. And she's still in it. And her husband is one of the people that I want a meteor to just hit. But I have to say, you know what? Maybe he's doing this for her to help her. You know what I mean? Like, it's very weird when you get to the planet and you're like, what's everybody's roles here? And even, I've heard, especially Dolores Cannon talking about how people say when they cross over, they look, and that it really is like a play. Like, you see the theater, the earth is a theater. You see the people behind the wings. You see the people that come here who are say, you know what? I'm going to go down and I'm going to abuse you and beat you up. That way, maybe if I do it hard enough, you'll wake up and you'll learn your lesson. Okay, let's do it. And you jump to earth together. But then when you're here, you're like, you're a horrible person. I hate you. And they are a horrible person, but that person and that other person came together for that reason. I mean, literally everything happens for a reason, even the bad stuff is what I'm trying to say, I guess. I don't know.
It does. It does. It doesn't make, again, you cannot judge the intricacies of the steps you got to get here. You cannot judge it.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to tell people that map. It's impossible to give directions on that because it's different for everyone.
It is, yeah.
And you have to go at it in your way. And, that's the thing. And it does all happen for a reason. I think there are some things that are meant to be, are tests, of stumbling blocks.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that there's, of course, nefarious sources that are trying to stumble certain people and create as much chaos and negative stuff as they possibly can to prevent the earth in and of itself from moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and that's why the light workers are here, like me and you and probably anybody watching this, and it's up to us to fight that. And if we don't, we will suffer the consequences. So, I mean, we just, again, going back to Charles Dickens, talking about Scrooge, if he wouldn't have done what he did, Tiny Tim would have died. You know what I mean? And that's for us too. The bad stuff that is here doesn't mean we're like, oh, everything happens for a reason, so I'm just going to forget about it, blah, 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 blah. No, you're here for a reason too. If you're a light worker, you get out there and you fight it either spiritually, mentally, whatever you're supposed to do. Because if you don't, you're going to suffer, your kids are going to suffer, your family's going to suffer. So, I mean, there is a very fine balance of free will and everything happens for a reason kind of thing. But there's little things that are given to you and it's your choice to take it or not. And if you don't take it and you don't, put on your armor, like you say, and fight, you're going to have to live with that.
Right. Absolutely. It's a tremendous responsibility and it is, every time, every year, I'm like, I'll look back at the year before and go, man, I learned so much that year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, I love that feeling too of like, cool, I'm still changing. Good.
Yeah.
And, I'm just happy that, at least now it's not like what we're talking about is forbidden. Okay. Like it used to be very taboo to even speak of some of these things. I mean, unless you were at like some retreat in Sedona, I mean, but now I really think that we're in a very interesting time period. Yeah. And I think it's going to get a whole lot more interesting. And I think most of which is like as much good as I think there is increasing, you can bet your bottom dollar that an equal share of the opposite of that is also increasing. And we're going to have a real, polarity thing going on. And I really think that there's a lot of us that have to just remind ourselves to stay, more up here and just remember why we're here.
Yeah.
Remember, and to not, get pulled and pushed in all these different, like, just truth is ineffable. It cannot be erased. It cannot be, hidden away. Like, if the truth is the truth, then that's going to always end up winning in the end. And I think in this holiday season, refresh yourself with the Christmas Carol and all of these things, and maybe, think about like how different life would be had you not existed, for everyone around you.
Yeah.
Because that's really the thing, is none of us are just like it. Every single person matters in a huge way, and they have no idea how huge. No idea. It's like you're affecting somebody. If you're breathing in and out, you're affecting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
So make it good.
Yeah. Yeah. Or at least don't get in their way. There.
That, yeah, please, God.
Yeah. Because there's some people I'm like, I can't look up.
I know.
But then I'm like, the reason I was grinning earlier when you were talking about the cat, meow meow. I have some family members that are questionable. Anyway, you know what they always would see, like Nightmare was a panther demon, and had a connection with that thing. And then meow meow meow. It just clicked when you said that. I was like, oh wait, hold on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I bought a lighter one time, a long time ago, and it had a panther. It was one of those stupid Bic lighters where it was like half like fantasy and then like some other thing like that was like a real picture of something, and I thought they were hysterical.
Yeah.
Okay, like it was so funny. But this one was like a space panther. And it was kind of like, anyway, I think after Christmas or something, I bought it. Like, I was like, dude, here's your space demon panther. And it was like, it's not funny. It was like,
oh my God.
It's like, how many times do you see that thing?
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. But there's a whole other thing which I'll text you about. But anyway, I thought it was the funniest lighter that's ever been a lighter. And, I mean, nothing was funnier than that lighter. And, yeah, it was, maybe we bullied a little too much. Because then I painted a painting of it and then gave that. I was like,
oh my
lighter.
dang, you all in, girl.
Oh, I did UFOs in the background with like a cat. I mean, it was the whole thing.
Wow.
It was one of the funniest freaking things ever. It was like some MST3K stuff. You know?
Yes.
Like one of those really bad movies where it's like Space Panther Demon or whatever, and you're like, come on, dude. Like, what? Like from like the 1970s, it's like overdubbed. Yeah. It's like some Slavic movie. You know what I mean? That's what it was, though. It was that cheesy of a like artwork, and it was like, I literally would stop at gas stations when we were traveling, and I'd be like, I would try to find, and if it was there, I was like, I would buy it because it was so funny.
Oh my God.
All that bad sci-fi art's funny. But anyway, I love it. It's so funny. I guess I should go because it's 2 where you're at. It's 1 where I'm at.
Yeah, I think we covered some pretty good ground, though. I feel like we said everything that was important that needed to be said. We got a thumbs up. So.
Oh my God, I just forgot about that. Yes. Do it again.
Yeah.
Come on. One more time.
If we're saying the right stuff.
Come on. Now they're like, come on, guys.
Like, we're not here for your amusement. We're not toys. Go on. I
Jump how high.
I imagine our angels and our spirit guides are always like,
because
like,
I never get
not
enough.
again.
You know how it is where you're like, do it again.
Yeah.
Something just happened. Did you see that?
No. Did a light come on?
Yeah, all the light just shifted in here.
I was gonna say it looks like a light came on or something.
Right, that's what it looked like to me. Oh, it did it on yours too.
Oh, there's something weird over there.
I know. That's where I saw it though.
It's like an orb or something in my face. Ah, there it is again. Okay. Weird.
Maybe they're pulling out all the stops now.
Maybe.
Dude, that's so crazy though about the thumb. I mean, I researched everything, like looking to see if that was even possible on this. It's not possible. That whole thing is crazy. But anyway, oh my God, it's so cool. I'm so happy.
You better not lose this footage. Back it up.
Well, we got a thumbs up, so we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a thumbs up this time. We're talking the correct way.
Yes. Okay. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
It would sound like a bell?
Yeah.
Like boom.
Yeah. That was weird.
I love it. I love our life. Okay.
Yay.
Well, again, people, y'all don't know. There was a lot of extra unseen helpers that put this thing together.
Yeah, from last night, this morning, right now, it's been the past 24 hours have been wild.
Dude.
Tonight's probably going to be wild too.
I don't know. My legs are broken.
Huh?
I was sitting on my legs. I'm like, I broke my legs.
Are you still in that broken chair?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm going to get you a chair for Christmas.
This one is, well, I thought I fixed it. I didn't. Girl, I didn't. I didn't fix this old chair. This chair, I don't want it to know I'm talking about it negatively, but
You're going to fly out any minute. We're just going to see your legs fly.
Oh, yeah. No, it's still, yeah, no. And it was spinning. I was like, so bad. All right. I got to go to my normal life tomorrow. I'm going to log out of here. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas. Keep don't forget to be in the present. Keep the joy of the ghost of Christmas present.
Yeah.
Be in the present.
Also, I like your hair like that.
Like this?
I like how you did it.
I literally did nothing but like pull it back. I barely.
I know, but that's the way.
I like your scarf makes you look so like a member of the royal family. Like when you have it over your shoulder, not the whole thing, just like a little. Yeah, like you had it like cut like this to where it looked like you were wearing like you look like I'm here with Prince William, whatever. No big deal.
No big deal. No big whoop.
I mean,
no, my Target scarf. I love it.
It's nice.
I love it.
I mean, we do have that blood type, so you never know.
That's right.
We royal family.
Oh God.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that.
Save the queen. We should do an episode on that. I am so on the fence about a lot of stuff with regards to like rumors about the queen, but we'll get there. I know she's dead now. God rest her soul. But yeah, I would love to talk to you about that. Okay. My legs are broken.
Yeah, I think my husband's asleep on the couch. He's probably like, let me in. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, at least he solved your technical problem earlier.
God.
That was so weird too. I don't even understand. Oh my God, my microphone works on everything but this app. So I don't know why. Like, anyway. Okay, I'm gonna I love this episode. I think it's gonna be great.
Me too. I can't wait to see all the shorts. Oh, and we have a TikTok, and
Yeah. And we have a YouTube as well, but it hasn't gone public yet. I've been uploading stuff on there.
You can find shorts from our videos on TikTok and probably Instagram and Facebook one day.
Very soon. Yeah. Well, definitely YouTube. And our full episodes are on Rumble right now. But I'm going to put all the links in there. Yeah. And they'll be on YouTube like in the next 24 hours. So I'll put that on here too. So good deal. My legs aren't broken anymore. The blood is back in the lower extremities. I cannot feel my legs at all. I was sitting on them like in a ball.
Yeah.
And then I went to get up and I was like, I don't have feet.
Like a baby calf trying to walk around.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, dude. It was pretty bad. On a side note, I watched my pig Rue lose sleep, like her foot fell asleep.
Aww.
And it was like how weird to have a hoof, right? And she was like, Mom. And I was like, dude, I'm sorry, bro. And she was like trying to walk around. She's like, ugh. It's like, it happens to the best of us, Rue. I can't. I'm sorry about that. It doesn't happen to the bunnies or any of them, but you know, you sat on your leg weird.
Poor Rue.
Poor Rue. She's so fat.
She got us through some hell.
Well, she'll get up in my lap and then she'll sit all stupid, like with everything's tucked like dumb. And then you know how heavy she is. I'm like, why are you doing that? And then that was the day where her feet were, she was trying to hide them so that I wouldn't like give her a pedicure. And then, so she was like, kept doing this and tucking them back under her fat. And then she got up and she's like, bah.
Aww.
It was so sad. I was like, Rue, just calm down. And she's like, it's like, dude, you sat stupid, Rue. I've done it 1,000 times. Trust me. It's you feel stupid. Like, thank God there wasn't a fire drill. Okay, Rue? Which happened to me in school.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no. They're like, feet on the floor. Because I would always be like, like all like tucked up under myself, like in a knot. And because I'm just like not comfortable with this, I'm like all like contorted out for some reason. And then they're like, feet on the floor, Linz, or whatever. And there was a fire drill though, and my left leg was completely numb. It was like 6th grade, and I just went. I mean, like, I just got up and was like, all right. They're like, okay, in the halls, going out there. And I was like, and then it was like, ha ha, you could hear the laughs of the kids, like, ha, ha, ha. And I was a fat kid, so they called me Shamu. So they're like, yeah. So they're like, Shamu's the beach. She beached herself.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
And I was like, ah.
You're just laying there like, help. I can't get up.
And then the tingles kept like come back in, and you're like, ah. So I was Rue that day.
Rue really is your child. I got it.
I met my match. I said it from early on. Yep. No, I've even been like told that, like, you have to have this experience.
Yeah. Oh, you're not gonna have any kids. You don't know what a toddler's like. Here's a pig.
Right. Well, all guinea pigs are like infants, right? So they're all like sweet, precious babies. Then you've got your like my bunnies that I've had. They're like they're 2-year-olds. They're going to throw temper tantrums and stuff. Well, guinea pigs do too. Rue? Rue is a second grader. That's a second grader with a bad attitude who thinks that she's cooler than me. So, yep. So no, I've had all of the bad attitude kids. For sure. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah, no, Rue takes my lunch money though, for sure. Yep. She's awful. She's absolutely awful.
That's funny.
I threaten my pig every day. I
You
threaten her.
do.
I do. I talk to her just like this, and I'm like, "You are so lucky that I don't eat pork."
Yeah, like that one time, I was on the phone with you and you were like, "Hey, do you and Matthias like pork chops? Because I'm gonna mail you some fresh pork chops."
Yeah, they're gonna be wrapped up real tight. Rue's like, and the last Rue story is like the most infuriating thing is when she knows she's gonna do something so. And there's like this, like where the kitchen sink is, there's like an island, right? And then there's nothing more infuriating than seeing this. I'm going to use this as an angle, and I might die because I might go overboard on this chair. But of seeing this, like where, like I know she's going to do something, I can feel it, and then I see this. And then ready? And then hauling ass and then tearing something up.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. And then seeing that like side eye where it's like,
Are you looking at
like,
me?
yeah, and her face like with her mouth hanging open, like I'm gonna be in so much trouble. Like why? Like why did you do it? I watched your thought process. You considered not doing it.
Why do I get, when you were doing that, the image that came to my mind was Cartman when he's like, "Whatever, I do what I want.
It's in the
You don't
living
know
room.
me.
You don't know me.
Whatever, I do what I want."
Yeah, screw you guys.
That's rude.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally Rue. It's completely Rue. She's Eric Cartman. Mom. It's that big meme. Big meme. Gosh. Free pork chops to anybody. Dude, no, it is Eric Cartman.
Yeah, she's
It's
Eric Cartman.
Erica Cartman. Oh, so true. Okay, I'm gonna log out of here. And yeah, I have to work tomorrow. So.
Yay.
Oh my legs. Oh my legs. Yeah. Yay. No.
If anything weird
excited.
happens tonight, message me before you go to work.
Oh, I will. Okay, I'm gonna leave here. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.